largest women's Fortnite event in the world, and that's what you give me? Hello, hello, hello! Much better, everyone. Thank you so much. I'm your stage host, Elizabeth, and welcome to TwitchCon, where we have the Milk Cup LAN Championship. You're gonna be cheering for a while. I hope you know that when you have me around. But let's be clear, this is the largest women's Fortnite event in the world with the largest women's Fortnite prize pool in the United States. Just at this LAN alone, $210,000 up for grabs. Hundreds of women have competed to be here. The top 50 duos are here. And that's what you're all here to celebrate. Are we clear? Are we ready? I've seen the girls, on an anecdotal note, I've seen the girls, they are buzzing to compete, they are ready to compete, you've seen them on stage, so I don't want to delay you any further, but just in case you are joining us for the first time, or you need a little bit of a refresher, we have a video of how the Milk Cup is going to shake down, friends, so pay attention and get a glass of milk while you're at it.
The Milk Cup is where the best women in Fortnite prove themselves. Every build, every elimination, every victory royale, it's all brought them one step closer to this final moment. And now, the final stage is set. Women from across the US, from amateur to pro, would all sign up to compete in the 2025 edition of the Milk Cup. This would feature Fortnite's most iconic game mode, Battle Royale. So yes duos and yes to builds. These ladies would then have to compete through 3 open qualifiers to try and find themselves in the 3 main events. Each of these open qualifiers would advance 50 duos to that qualifier's main event. From there, the top 15 duos from main event 1 and main event 2 would earn their spot in the LAN championship. The third and final main event advanced the 20 remaining duos to the championship, making up a 50 duo LAN championship lineup. With prize money up for grabs throughout each of these main events, players were both able to earn winnings while also securing a coveted spot at the LAN. Through the main events, $90,000 has been given away and $210,000 remains, for a staggering total of $300,000 in prizing, the largest prize pool for women in Fortnite history. At the LAN Championship, all qualified players will be dropping into custom lobbies, competing across 6 rounds. Points are secured through placements and eliminations, but it's going to take consistency if you want to survive this gauntlet. At the end of those 6 games, the duo with the most points is not only going to take home the title of Milk Cup LAN champions, but they'll also get the trophy and the lion's share of $210,000. But this tournament is about so much more than just brackets and scoreboards. It's about the players, the rivalries, their ambitions, and the moments that define them. In Series 1, Nina and Vader silenced their doubters, showing that their dominance in 2024 was not a fluke. In Series 2, Frantic and Canary emerged as challengers, taking the title and again dominating Series 3. And now, finally, the championship. The question is simple. Will reigning champions like Moxie and Regs defend their crown? Will Nina pave her own path separate from her org teammates? Will the young prodigy Canary claim her first title, or will new names rise to claim the championship title? 6 months, 3 series, and countless battles that have all led to right here. The Milk Cup LAN Championship. The final step of the journey.
You can keep on clapping, clap louder. I want all of TwitchCon to hear you. Beautifully done, everyone. And if you want the rest of the world on the internet to hear you, take out those phones. I see you already taking them out. I love it. Tweet at Gonna Need Milk. That's Gonna Need Milk. And your tweets can be shown on broadcast. Let's get the word of this stream, this LAN championship out, so we can give these ladies the final they deserve. Can I get one more cheer? Beautiful. Now, friends, I'm going to send it over to our lovely analyst desk. Sierra Dawn, please take it away.
And just like that, Jacob, it is time for the Milk Cup LAN Championship to take off, and I just couldn't be more excited. You gotta tell me, like, what are you feeling from this crowd right now?
Excited is an understatement. This crowd has been absolutely amazing from the pre-show going into the games. You hear them in the background making some noise right now. There is $210,000 up for grabs. 2 glorious medals. That trophy that you get your name added to and becoming the best in the world. There's so much up for grabs this weekend.
Yeah, you can never forget about the MVP award later on. Heard there's a little medal that could be making its way into one of our lucky contenders' hands. But for right now, right here, Jacob, the moment that we are trying to feature is just getting into that first lobby. I know a lot of the girls, we had an opportunity to kind of chat with some of them backstage, and you can tell there's a little bit of that LAN jitters coming into effect because some of them had the opportunity to play last year at Comic-Con, but here at TwitchCon, here on this crazy stage setup, it's a whole different environment.
Yeah, and just being able to kind of talk to them and get their feel of like what is going through their mind in moments like this. Some of them were like, I'm a little nervous for the gameplay. It is my first LAN experience. Other ones were like, I'm nervous for the walkout, but Taco, the games have started. We are here. This is game number 1. Let's get into it.
And kicking things off, OXR headquarters, that's going to be the playground for Nina and Vader. But obviously uncontested, they're going to have a little bit more luxury time in comparison to some of our other contenders in the lobby.
Yeah, just being uncontested is like a world of difference in this game. You're able to kind of get a little bit more time, and you're seeing the whole difference. We're talking about uncontested. What about a contested drop? They already have 1 elimination, so you know they're chasing around a solo that's looking to survive, but with no builds, no loadout, they're going to go down early.
Look, Michaela has been very open about her expectations leading into this event, but for Mystic and Shadow Slayer, that's got to be a nice little swing of confidence. You win your ones outright, clean duo elimination pairing, and that's going to give them even more time to kind of just loot up and get a better gauge of where they want to find Surge.
Yeah, and as you get these early game eliminations, you mentioned Surge, but let's talk about the points per elimination. That's going to help you rise up that leaderboard. And already we saw through the 3 majors, sometimes it's a little bit point difference that really separates some of these teams at the top of the leaderboard. And we're seeing another early game scuffle go down over towards another contested drop. And there's that another team. There's at least 3-4 teams all in the minimap right now.
That's the problem with Supernova. We knew it was going to be a triple contest, just keeping that drop map earlier on. But Ria and Karina, they're kind of just having to keep their heads on a swivel here. They still want to apply a little bit of steady pressure to Ardup and Kitsy, but careful what you ask for. Don't want to bite off more than you can chew.
Yeah, you got to watch out for moments like this. And able to get the high ground, that is actually pretty good. You kind of see them over towards that RVs. There's a lot of brick. There's a lot of material here, but there's not a lot of weapons if you don't get it early. But another fight, this is inside of Supernova. This is not even too far away from the other fight was going on. That's B. That's Tokyo. We know how aggressive they like to get, Taco.
And whoever comes out on top here, they're still going to have to probably duke their way out of the triple contest that might be coming into effect. But B, Tokyo, there were so many concerns about how things were actually going to shape up for them. But that first game momentum could be everything. Crocs and Glocks, though, sweet. They seem to have a game plan of their own. You have to remember their Coach Fullcake here in the audience, even attending live, and he's got to have given them a handful of tips and advice, but they're still just doing their best to hold their own, prevent Tokyo and B from basically barreling over them inside this box fight.
Yeah, just got to be careful, though, because the longer this fight takes, we know how many teams are literally right towards the west of them. One of them just still loading towards the north, so they know they're on a little bit of a clock. But Tokyo, you see the material count, 0 builds left, and the high ground starts to get damaged. Oh, my! Tokyo with a massive shot to win the fight, bringing B and her to a 2v1.
That is just the ultimate shutdown. Now B from a separate angle. She knew Tokyo was weak, but it didn't matter. Able to close that fight out so cleanly. That's going to be an easy revive as well. And there's still trouble brewing elsewhere on the map. Lulu and Michaela, they are also making do with what they need to, finding those double elimination pairings. And they've got decent material on loot now, Jacob, to kind of keep things moving forward.
Yeah, you kind of see all the extra. They even got extra material. They're talking about the brick, double minis. Once you consolidate them all into one, you get an extra item slot. So even though you'd think an early game fight like this, a little bit too early, things can go south. But when you win a fight like this, it starts to build that confidence, especially since that team that they fought against already looted up their drop spot. So they get double the loadout, which is actually a little concerning because you see Michaela and Lulu, there's still 2 item slots missing.
They definitely like a little bit more shield that they can acquire, maybe even some white heals to kind of help them with those later rotations. But for the time being, they're really just going to have to keep an eye out for some of that overhead view that some other teams might be looking for on the mountainside just north of them. There's a team kind of just bolstered down, but Lulu and Michaela kind of traveling a separate direction right now. Oh, it's K-Moores.
Yeah, they land over there towards Gordy Gate, I believe it's now, with the Fortnitemares update. So they're kind of taking a lot of the strategies you see any team over there. They loot up the actual POI, then they go over towards the east. They grab one of those mountains, especially if it's center zone for now. You get a lot of information, your ability to get those surge tags. So it's a great heads-up play. But what's going on over here? Ama, her duo. Lissy and her duo as well, kind of all boxed up. But then here comes Yaz, and there's another team in the background.
This might just be a scenic rotation here. That is a little bit more cut off than what she wants to be, but everyone's utilizing the same crash pad just to try and get out of dodge. Just way too much company. You do not want to get smothered inside of two different teams on either end of you. Blissy and Mel's, they might actually be in the worst of it currently. And they know they've just got to box up and wait, hope that the pressure kind of alleviates itself with other teams recognizing, hey, there's just too much local traffic, and we don't want to be the first ones to get lobbied.
Yeah, I know we haven't necessarily seen the whole view of where's everybody rotating to, where's the zone, but you can see there's 5 teams directly over just north of Kappa Kappa Factory. Look at the top. There's another solo arrow rotating in, so I have a feeling this zone, this time around for game 1, is moving towards the south. Blissy and Mel's kind of stacked up around a lot of these other teams. They were one of the last ones to rotate over in this direction. You see their game plan is simple. Get some surge and worry about everything else later.
Sana and Silver, a little bit more of a lull in the action here, but they recognize that they might actually be trailing just behind another team. They're going to try and utilize a little bit of this elevation peak, and it's Liz and Dolo that they've got in their sights. You can always spot out those mini little surge bases in the distance, but think better of it. They're trying to find some openings, and we have seen a lot of these ladies trying to be proactive with acquiring that surge super early on because they know the more central that these zones tend to pool, it's going to be all the more difficult to kind of find your leverage, find your positioning.
Yeah, and some of these teams have played against each other all year long through all 3 major main events just to get their spot here in the final. So it's all progression, it's all experience, and it's all learning to get better, and you're already seeing it kind of play out here from even the last main event 3 until now. Teams being just a little bit more precise, careful with their rotations, and making sure they accumulate that surge early, because just like any game of Fortnite out there, if you're below that storm surge threshold, you lose control over your own game.
Corina and Kiriyama, they're kind of keeping an eye out. Harmony Hills starting to get a little bit more traction, but found a nice push to kind of rebuff their shields with a Flowberry Fizz, but no crash pads. It is going to be a long journey out in the open, especially with teams like Vader and Nina hawking you down from height in the distance.
Yeah, but I like what they're doing. You know, when we were watching some of the other POVs, you saw the edge of the zone was over towards Gordy Gate, so they're just kind of being proactive. It's more so, you mentioned it yourself, without crash pads, you have to be precise to get towards the center of the zone as early as possible. You don't want to be stuck on that congested edge. So even though they might not necessarily have any eliminations now, I'm not worried for them one bit.
Here's a fight that could get real scrappy real quick. I see Frante, but I don't see Canary. Well, he's going to wait to reunite with her duo, and sure enough, but Smiley, that's definitely one of our leading fraggers, I would say, in the Milk Cup series, Jacob. You can never take it easy with Smiley and Sophia. And Frantic, Canary, they know best. They fully understand how to try and play through these rotations, but they are looking a little bit lower in builds than what they would probably want to be by now, Jacob.
Yeah, it's kind of one of those things where you take those early game fights, because I did see Fran pick up an elimination in the feed. It was probably Canaries down, granted, but it just goes to show that they've already had some early game activity. They land over towards that Canyon's Crossing spot, so even though they do have access to abundance of loot, you can see it's pushing them further and further away from their drop spot, but Fran knows, I already eliminated somebody here. Let's just go replenish some of that loot. Exactly what you were talking about, Taco.
It's nice to get those max out of the chug splashes, but at the same time here, Jacob, this dead side rotate, you are sacrificing a little bit of those early storm ticks, and we have seen instances throughout Div Cup finals even leading into those kind of heal-off circumstances, so that's always something to kind of keep in mind.
You talk about Div Cup finals, Canary was just in one of those, even took down Kanata, so you're seeing why Canary, I wouldn't just right out say probably known as one of the best in this lobby, but when you talk to a lot of the community, they reference her as probably the young GOAT, the one to kind of watch out for in a tournament like this, and then you have Fran, the experience. This is a scary team, and it shows how experienced they are, because you know almost anybody else, when you take that early game fight, you keep going. They were smart enough to disengage, look at the zone, and start their rotation.
They just know better than to draw draw too much attention. But for Anti-Canary, they're still going to keep an open eye out, take advantage of whatever surge peaks they can acquire. Nolik and Bali, though, they might be running smack dab into Dolo and Liz. They're going to box up temporarily. They just want to try and keep a little bit of coverage on this rotation. They know they got plenty of trees directly in front of them to re-farm, but it's really just about finding an opening on that edge of zone where you're going to be able to find priority positioning and then just control the flow of other teams rotating later than you.
Yeah, and it's this zone right here. It's third zone. It's so early, Taco, but in the back of your mind, you start realizing the terrains that are right next to you, the OXR Mountain, the Utopia buildings, over towards the northeast as well. And you got to start to prepare to have the materials in case it does go up the mountaintops. Moxie, Regs, two of the defending Milk Cup champions. And I was talking to them before. We were over there looking at the trophy, and they said, yeah, guess what? Our names are going to be right here yet again. They're looking to go back to back.
Yeah, and I really loved how Kelly kind of touched on it on the desk too, because we saw them in fourth place throughout the qualifiers kind of leading up to this, and I feel like the public perception has almost somewhat left them out of the who's taking home the Milk Cup championship throne, but you can never factor out Moxie and Regs for that level of competition.
Yeah. Saying they're LAN players. They practice from home, or when they do, they're about like on 40 pings. So coming here, playing in person, everyone on equal playing ground, that gives them the confidence. And you saw it in Reg's loadout as well, the exotic Slapberry Fizz. That's going to be the big thing here. They were able to access the bunker and quickly rotate on out. Well, it's no double trouble or maybe the Wrecker exotic, but that's going to grant them so many different resources in terms of shield, HP, and that Flowberry effect.
A little bit unfortunate there for Jade. Just loses a slight chunk of her shield, but enough pushback is going to send Regs to want to prioritize restoring her own shield back up to a full 100, but have to respect the discipline here from Regs and Moxie. Even though we know what kind of fighting power lies within this duo, they'd still rather just hold strong to what they feel like is a strong positioning. But Jade, Madden, if they're not careful, Regs, she might choose to go back in.
Especially now that, you know, some players, when they start getting tagged at, their boxes kind of shot at just a little bit, they just go ahead and try to enact a little bit of revenge. It does look like Regs just trying to reunite with Moxie. There goes that Slapberry Fizz and the Crash Pad. So it does look like they're going to focus on rotating. They are trying to cover towards the south side of the zone. So they're hoping this is going to be the least congested side, especially the more and more they go towards the east.
I know one big complaint that's always taken place throughout the scrims and the Milk Cup Academy moments is the ladies wanting to find rotations while they're not getting lit up from the teams that are approaching from those later directions. And Regs, Moxie, they know if you just get ahead of the pack, like you said, you don't necessarily have to worry about it as much, but it's definitely all going to come down to positioning. I feel like things are going to get real scrappy by the time we hit like 7th zone.
Yeah, and then next couple of zones going up into that one, it's going to be really interesting to see the Storm Surge leaderboard. Storm Surge does typically activate. It's a matter of when and how proactive you were. And we saw instances of so many teams either getting eliminations or in their Surge bases just trying to accumulate that damage. But just what happens when it pops? Zone does look like it was pulling towards the north. Up until now, Taco, we got an eastern lean. So it does seem like, I was talking about all these different POIs, Shining Span Bridge could be a possibility as well.
Really just keeping an eye out, though, what's developing right now between Madi AFK and Jules Bread. It seems like Jules really wants to make this rotate, but they are clearly concerned about getting shot at on the way out of there. Sure enough, Marty and Kay, they're going to get some nice damage. And it's down to Jules and Bread. Clock was nearly working against them, but fortunately enough, sent right back above that surge damage threshold.
Yeah, even with a mess up on the crash pad, Jules safely finds her way back to her teammate. Could probably do that again, but Haley gets angled out by Jade and a whole nother duo. Uves is there, just trying to continue to put pressure. Not sure if they were the ones that actually got the knock, but they know that whole team was down there getting focused by so many others in the lobby. They're just trying to take advantage of it, but without a precise location of where that knock is, it does look like a revive is going to be possible.
Even with the revive going off, looking a little bit scuffed, not seeing those shields get replenished quickly enough, and knowing that there's still Jade and Martin kind of sandwiching Rising and Haley. It's a very difficult spot to be in, but Yves and Pau, they kind of need a refresh, Jacob. They're looking a little bit sparse on their material count.
Yeah, they're gonna need a refresh here, or they're gonna need those teams to rotate out quickly. That way they can try to farm whatever is going to be next to them. We're talking about those two teams, but Rising, Haley, they're kind of just stuck. They kind of lost a little bit of control over their game. Doesn't mean they're down and out by any means, but they just have to be a little bit more careful in these situations. Jade Marin only 87 above the damage threshold. That's fine and dandy for now, but it's almost looking scary for later on in the game if they don't find what they need.
Way too close for comfort, because at that point you're kind of just depending on the Robbie to thin itself out, but you never want to leave it up to odds and just kind of lucking out with other teams getting eliminated. So they'd rather get a little bit closer in where next zone is pooling. They might run smack dab into a little bit of foot movement, but Utopia is just getting so congested currently, Jacob. Right now, it just seems like you're in the positive as long as you didn't get stuck near Utopia.
Yeah, and you can kind of see that they used basically two different crash pads. They were congested with the first one. They chose no Flowberry Fizz, so that way they didn't float in the sky. Second one, they used the Flowberry, so that way they cover distance very, very quickly. Watching all these teams rotate out, they're going to even recycle one. They're trying to think 2, 3, 4 steps ahead of the competition. And instead of positioning themselves up on top of that bridge where every other team will be, they said, hey, we're just going to take it slow. We're going to go underneath the road less traveled and hopefully hide while all the chaos goes on above.
I also like the mentality shift. They might even be looking to play like a stealth sneak motion on that launch pad. So I have to wait and see whether or not something develops there for them. But Maddie and Sofiane, definitely a team that you can never count them out. I wouldn't factor them as a dark horse in the competition because I think that so many of these ladies have a lot of respect and love for each other. But Maddie and Sofiane have been very impressive with their consistency potential.
Yeah, and they've already proved they can turn it on if they're below where they want to be on the leaderboard. It was their qualifying main event where they were barely on the line. The next one, they got progressively better, and now it's the LAN championship. Even though we see them kind of taking a little bit too many shots for Sofiane, they quickly back up. They're healing. They're not getting greedy for damage. They're 183 above the threshold. We've already seen a few teams less than that.
I am a little bit concerned, though, for Sofiane because while it looks like they have enough shield to replenish, they don't seem to have any white heals, Jacob. So it's either you make a play for Siphon and a refresh, maybe even hope that that team that you eliminate has a med kit or two on them, some form of white health sustain. Otherwise, they are going to have to get a little bit more involved here because even sitting close to that 200 range above the surge threshold, it's still way too close for comfort.
Yeah, the only other option is just hope and pray somebody gets sprayed across the map and you're able to land that perfect shot to steal it away. You're seeing, even though we're here at TwitchCon in San Diego, they have their own beach, their own coastline here. 582 above the threshold. We saw the early aggression from 2 eliminations to 4 for Tokyo and B, and they're just fishing up, making sure to get floppers, the shield fish, so that way they don't have to dig deep into their bag of resources here. And even now, because they were ahead of so many other teams on this rotation, they can pick the perfect time, get some damage, and then worry about the rotation after.
At the same time, Daya and Yaz, they are not allowing B and Tokyo to have the ability to just free fish. They're looking across at their own competition. They're like, wait a second, we don't want that kind of advantage to go somebody else's way. So B, Tokyo, another team, though, that I think definitely likes to go for those later height takes. So I'll be really interested to see whether or not they try to replicate that because we saw them very frequently going for that in the qualifiers. And if we know that there are contenders that like to play for the high ground, like Moxie and Regs, it could get really, really messy up there.
Yeah, we can see that B still has the fishing rod in her inventory. So theoretically, we can continue to try to fish for shield fish or floppers while trying to maintain a presence underneath. Get damage while you can. Lulu, Michaela, they don't want to be underneath that bridge, or at least not just yet. They use that crash pad, the Flowberry Fizz, to get themselves elevated. But I was talking about how congested it is on top of the bridge. Now we're getting a bird's eye view.
Like, this is looking just like California traffic right now on Pumpkin Pass, okay? So many teams that are just boxed up currently. And Jacob, water zones can be so vicious, but B, Tokyo, they're getting a little bit trapped underneath. Neutral and Rogo, they're unfortunately too far behind. They're kind of at the mercy of the other teams in front of them as Scare and Melanie are taking full advantage of where Blorina is at. She's not going to get a chance to escape, but they're just stuck on the water still, Jacob. They're going to have to move eventually.
Yeah, it's a safe spot to be for now. You see there's not as many teams in the water as there is above. But it's a rotating when the zone moves away. This next one is going to be a little safe. It just moves south on the bridge a little bit more, so most of those teams that are in the water are already safe. But you're seeing all the way towards the north from the bridge, kind of curving towards the east. There are so many teams that do not have a position in zone just yet that have to play this one perfectly.
Oh, check out Vader and Nina, though. That is a beautiful position to really try and control where everybody else is at. Build's looking a little bit limited, but they've got more than enough surge damage damage, Jacob. They can be some of the first to keep prioritizing their rotations. But knowing Vader and Nina, seeing Vader with those 2 eliminations already, she's just getting warmed up here.
Yeah, no, I was actually watching, I believe it was Faxity stream, Vader versus Frantic. Vader was saying, I'm the best. I'm a LAN player. I play on about 40, 50 ping, and if you put me in an equal situation where nobody has an advantage, I am the threat to this lobby. 2 eliminations already, 600 above the damage threshold. And you can see, you mentioned it yourself, even with the lack of materials, they have the crash pads, they have the Flowberry Fizz, so that's what they're going to use to try to save as many of those materials.
So all I know is I saw Reed's boost of confidence towards Nina being like, I'm waiting for her to win by 600 or something, right? And I would not be surprised to see them be some serious top contenders. Sophia, Smiley, though, drawing things back towards their direction, a little bit more towards the low ground. And with all of these teams kind of perching up in different elevated layers across Pumpkin Pass, Sophia and Smiley are going to have a really tough time actually navigating through here. So many pre-existing builds to work through. They're just going to go for the box fight, all right. They're trying to take down the wall, but CC Nuggets fights back. There is no opportunity here. Sophia now trying to see if she can recover, maybe even look to play for the revive, but she knows what kind of application of pressure is about to head her way.
Yeah, it's good for disengage. The floppers are there. I'm not sure what the shield situation actually is, but it doesn't look like CC is going to get aggressive just yet. They are stepping forward moment by moment. Big shot by Sophia. That's going to be the first down. Evens it up to a 1v1 situation, but CC said, nah, you can have it. We made a mistake. We know it.
That was a devious window peek hold by Sophia. I can't even fault Susie and her teammate for wanting to get a little bit more aggressive there, but now drawing things back. Kanari, Frantic, trouble in the water here, but it's trouble for neutral as she's going to find herself getting eliminated. That's a big refresh here potentially, and Rogo still stuck underneath. 0 builds to her name. At least has some shield to work with Jacob, but she's a sitting duck in the water right now.
Yeah, I even see Vanessa. It looks like she's by herself. Rogo's doing a good job of just trying to rotate out with the crash pads without any builds. You're really just hoping and praying there's pre-made boxes on the other edge. Bot lane gets spotted out. That's an elimination. Siphon that's needed. And the daring move to go to the backside of the zone to collect the materials. I called it daring for a reason because it just doesn't work out, but I like the effort.
She just has no other options though. Sometimes it's just the way the cookie crumbles, but Frantic shut down. Sophia, Smiley, comeback season already, making sure that they can put themselves in the best position for the low ground. That's going to put so much pressure now onto Canary to play things out as a solo, and way up in the high ground, Maddie and Sophie-Ann still looking to try and commandeer what they can from height, but their builds aren't as healthy as you would want them to be for an overall height hold.
Yeah, you can see the only thing they have kind of keeping them up there safely is going to be that Flowberry Fizz. As it moves over, they're going to have to invest a lot of material if they plan to hold this high ground. And right below them is Moxie and Regs. They're just waiting for that open opportunity to challenge for it. But right now, they set their eyes on the front side of zone. They know there's so much distance to cover. For Maddie and Sophie, this is going to be a risk-reward scenario. And right now, they said no risk. We just want to get to the front side of the zone while we can.
The problem is Sophie-Ann just doesn't have the HP forward, and there's so many teams looking to flood their way forward towards that front side. Crash pads going every which direction. Gazing Nicole underneath it all gets stuck in between. Smiley still powering through, finds another elimination onto Lulu, but Maddie, Sophie-Ann, they've done a decent job at not being spotted out here, Jacob, but they're going to be right overhead. Kitsune and Panda, they've got to be real careful about their next step.
Yeah, not only is doing a good job rotating this with Sophie-Ann, literally like on 25 HP, even though she had shields, but they're just continuously bouncing up. They were finally beat for the high ground, but they're just one of those teams that's ready to take any risk, control over their own game. Now high ground changes hands and a whole new team's living on top of that mountain.
It has been a pure 180 though for Sophia and Smiley. I saw them last, front side low. Kitsune and Panda have a real chance to just run head on into where Smiley and Sophia are at if they're forced to transition, drop another layer. But it seems like right now Kitsune just trying to hold down the secondary height approach a little bit more towards that mid-ground angle, waiting for a player that is scrambling underneath, but again, just sending themselves as far forward towards that front side as possible.
Yeah, it was Moxie, it was Regs. As soon as Maddie and Sophie put that crash pad at the front side of zone, they landed right on top. They built for it instead of fighting, and now they're just trying to secure a win here. They got multiple eliminations, 3 overall, including that one on the cat down below. It does look like one person's just trying to go ahead and get back into the zone, but that's just another elimination, 4th of the game. Now they're there targeting out Zay. Regs is dropping down, just try to collect as many materials as she can because look, Moxie only has 23 left.
Regs also just wants to play as much spoiler as she can for everybody else underneath them, and she's finding some consistent knocks, some consistent eliminations. They've got 4 already. Maddie also trying to pop off here in the elimination feed, but Kitsunat isolated currently as a solo. That's going to be an immediate target factor here for Moxie and Regs to tag team. It's only a matter of seconds, Jacob, before we see Regs drop yet again to try and find even more knocks or eliminations.
Yeah, 3 different solos running around this lobby. Well, that's one less as Sophie takes out Vanessa. That's solo on solo right there. Regs, exactly what you said, jumps down to the front side of the zone, just trying to clear as much of those builds as possible, get any eliminations that she can, but Smiley, Kitsu, they're basically going to clash, take each other out for the most part, as Sophie is still surviving down below as a solo.
Just a clutch master right now when it comes to the placement points. Maybe she could try to squeeze out second. It all depends on where Smiley was last seen, but Sophie Ann lurking underneath. Smiley's going to get put down by Moxie and Regs. 2 versus 1 scenario, but this has got to be all Xset coming out on top. Regs and Moxie are ready to rep the set here, Jacob. All they've got to do is lock down where Sophie Ann is inside of Utopia.
Oh, smart move by Sophie. She goes for the chop, but it's just 2v1. The numbers are too much. Moxie and Regs, your defending Milk Cup champions, win game 1.
We knew that they were going to come through with some form of a hustle, especially with the way that they were standing backstage. They seem so cool, calm, and collected because they've already done this before, Jacob, and they're ready to see if they can run it right back.
Yep, from the Pro-Am stage to the Milk Cup final, they know they have the recipe for success. They have the blueprint, and already in game 1, they're a huge threat to the lobby. And already, it might be too early, Taco, but can we see the first ever Milk Cup back-to-back LAN champion?
There is a real chance that that might be what takes place here. But you have to remember, Jacob, this is only game 1. There is still ample time left in today's competition. But way to start things off hot here for Xset, that's for sure. Moxie and Regs bringing home that game 1 is a massive momentum shift for sure. But we got to see what happens with the rest of the action. For right now, we're going to leave it up to our analysts to take care of the rest.
Yep.
Yeah, oh, my fault. I meant like with a game break. Sorry, guys. I'm a little bit too excited with what's happening here. But we will be right back with all of the action. Fortnite family, thank you all so much for your patience and understanding. We believe that we are headed in the right direction because lobby number 2, that's something that everyone has kind of been amping up here. I think a lot of our competitors on the stage even, they're feeling much more calm and relaxed in this environment now. I think it has been a net positive for them to kind of have this opportunity to kind of re-stimulate their own mentals. And you just got to treat every lobby as if it's the freshest one. Like it might just be, you know, one more game.
Yeah, and I'm going to be looking at Moxie and Regs because, you know, they were the team that actually did find a way to win that game 1 of the day. But even with some of these technical difficulties, some people could look about like, how do we bolster our strengths, what worked, and how do we replicate it? But at the same time, when you start to catch fire and you catch that momentum, you kind of get a little bit of a break, you get a little lackadaisy. So I'm going to be watching them throughout the course of this game to kind of figure out, do they still have that fire lit? Is it a momentum of avalanche falling down the mountain, or do they basically got to start from square one?
The way that they've been moving after that first lobby, Jacob, it would not surprise me if we just see them trying to replicate that process. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. And that is something that Moxie and Regs definitely excel at. They know how to just kind of control the pace. We saw the way that they were controlling that end game from height. It's all about just understanding the perfect time to strike for those height overtakes. But I do know Feldy here in the audience, he's got to be cheesing ear to ear after witnessing Xset bring home the bacon for that first round.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, you know, seeing Frantic and Canary kind of go down really, really early in that game, he's probably feeling it a little bit, but then he's like, oh, wait, there's a couple more Xset members in the game that we can still have a victory royale. It worked out for them. So, I mean, honestly, that's got to be a tough situation for Feldy to be in because, like, watching all kind of like your kids, like, which one is your favorite? Who do you root for? But, I mean, at the same time, it's like that double-edged sword.
Exactly. But at the same time, we know that all of our ladies are going to be dropping in fresh off that battle bus. For some of them, we saw a little bit bit of struggles with that early game contest. Wouldn't be surprised to see them maybe try to play that a little bit more reserved, especially when you look at areas on the map like Supernova Academy, for example. We knew it was going to be a triple contested area to start things off, but it seemed like there was way more than 3 teams to kind of kick it off.
Yeah, it was kind of just interesting how they rotated kind of very, very quickly towards that kind of POI area. We saw like 5 people just below the bridge, a couple people around Utopia. Supernova had a bunch of teams. So we're seeing teams, unlike what we see, online where they're kind of taking separate rotations around the map. We're seeing everybody take similar rotations, and kind of rightfully so. When you're in a kind of a spot or zone on the map, you kind of look at what's the priority rotation. But when everybody is taking that same rotation, it kind of makes it a stacked side of the zone to where it makes it hard for anybody to rotate through. And then you kind of have that where you get a far pull the zone right after. It kind of makes it hard and very, very risky to use those crash pads, to use those flowberry fizz, because we saw a few teams actually get taken down or drop to very, very low HP during some of those rotations.
Yeah, it can be really tough kind of navigating which direction you really want to head, especially when so much congestion starts to build much quicker than you might have originally anticipated. But the other thing, the kind of keynote here is that time to elimination needs to be fast and snappy as well, because we saw even some of our power hitter teams. I mean, first one that comes to mind, Frantic Canary. We're going to be talking about them a lot here today because they are absolutely cracked competitors, and yet we still saw them struggle in that mid-game process, largely credited to the fact that they went for an early engagement. They were able to find some success with early eliminations, but you could tell that it had been a drawn-out fight because the material count was not where it needed to be, and that ended up kind of being the thorn in their side. They weren't able to actually control and command the flow of rotations like what we are pretty much accustomed to seeing them do.
Yeah, and then you kind of add in, I mentioned earlier, they got kind of slowed down in those early game fights, but then you add max pool, so it makes it harder for them to kind of replenish any of that material, replenish any of the resources. So even though they didn't get dropped down, none of them got eliminated, they were still put into a spot to where their backs are up against the wall, because even as they made it towards the zone, it was so stacked. Teams on top of the bridge, teams below the bridge. So even though we talk about teams trying to take control, looking at these zones and kind of thinking steps ahead and trying to predict some of these zones is very, very important for a lot of these teams in this game, because it just kind of shows to where, are you going to have a tough rotation rotating next to maybe 20 teams, or are you going to be on the slow side of the rotation, kind of quickly using crash pads and fizz to dodge a lot of the chaos that goes around?
Well, one thing's for sure, Frantic Canary, the times where they found those major or I say majors, it's basically a major for the qualifier process, but the 2 that they did win, they won the first lobby also. So now to see Moxie and Regs actually be the light up for the highlight reel in that first game, it is very interesting for how they're going to be able to kind of make that bounce back, because you don't want to fall too far behind, even though we know that there's still 5 lobbies left to work with. As the closer that we get to that halfway point of match 3, that's where a lot of these competitors are really going to start to feel more of that squeeze, more of that pressure.
Yeah, and I'll be looking at, some of them, especially the ones that don't necessarily have the experience, is how they handle what you're saying, the pressure of maybe not necessarily performing as well at the top of the leaderboard, or maybe just not getting these situations that you want. But I think the game is ready, Taco. Enough of the yapping. Let's jump into game number 2 and continue the journey for the Milk Cup Championship.
Look, as much as we love to hear from the likes of Peach and just seeing everybody in that audience holding it down, showing so much love for all of our ladies competing here today, this is what it's all about, Jacob. Game 2 of 6. And right now, we're looking into Kitsy and Ardup. Shogun Solitude has an immediate contest, but the way that they're splitting this POI, it could make things a little bit dicey. They're going to have to keep an open eye out for Pa and Yves. They don't want to find themselves getting victimized by too many stray tags.
Yeah, and it does look like they're kind of giving up priority position over that flag, to where you not only get the loot, you get gold, but it also gives you kind of that marking of where your opponents are at, as long as they're close enough to get hit by it. But Kitsy, you kind of see the loadout's actually looking pretty good. Sentinel pump, decent amount of shield, the disengage with the launch pad as the just in case, and the early builds farming. Just got to really look at what the Ardup loadout is, because if they have double shotguns, maybe they can get aggressive, but since they're kind of staggering back a little bit, taking their time to try to get that perfect loadout, maybe they just don't have what they want.
Still think that the material count might also be a little bit of a concern here for Kitsy and Ardu, but they might also just be waiting for an opportunity. Perhaps Paul and Yves, if they get a little bit too separated from each other, that launch pad, like you mentioned, could be that ultimate cutting the gap. And if they're able to just collapse quickly, it might make all the difference, or they could just full-on disengage.
Yeah, it does look like the latter is going to go through, the disengage. And rightfully so. Like I talked about the flag capture, they get a bolstered loadout on the other side, and then you got to add in, this is a little bit of a hot drop. Those drones will be around, so there's a lot of extra heals, a lot of extra resources, and if you kind of lose control, you get pushed out just like that, but from one side of the map, literally to the other. We already saw Mystic and Shadow Slayer win this in game number 1, and they're continuing with the same tempo, but a fight back is coming through. They're trying to do what they can. A huge shot onto Shadow Slayer, but Mystic is feeling the confidence to clean that one up yet again. Back-to-back off-spawn fights where they find themselves victorious.
It's just very difficult to actually turn that one in your favor when you are left in that isolated position. A good attempt, but when you are looking at some of these immediate 50-50s and not like what we just witnessed at Shogun's where you can kind of spread the POI out a little bit further. Mystic and Shadow Slayer are doing a great job though at taking full control, and now we'll just see how they're able to kind of transfer some of this early game success into the mid.
Yeah, and it's huge because now they got all this space around this side of the mountain. There's a ton of what some people talk about, the best resource, the metal, the brick, and they got a lot of time to kind of loot up here. We got Scars, Aida, over on this side of the map. We seem very, very low on materials and kind of getting pushed down against Kay and Madi over there. And they got a little bit of elevation, but unfortunately that bush is going to go ahead and shroud a bunch of where they're actually at. So they're going to be able to kind of sit here and kind of figure out what they need to do because they're very, very low on materials. So they can't just run away freely.
That's the problem, too, for Scars, is another issue has been encountered there for Rick Brar. Kitsunat and Panda just getting aggressive very early on. We're just looking at so many separate positions. Went from southwest now all the way down to just far here at Dreamy Domain. And Kitsunat, I think that this is one of our sleeper teams for sure. I mean, we've seen them participate in a lot of those Milk Cup Academy scrims. We saw them even winning a handful of those lobbies over this past year. But Kitsunat and Panda have made it very evident that they have a lot of confidence behind them. And if they can find their stride here, get a little bit of rhythm behind themselves, they could be a serious Dark Horse contender.
Yeah, and they got a lot of space, a lot of opportunity at loot, even though they got that one elimination. You know that Solo's kind of running around trying to survive. And even though you see where the zone is at, it does kind of look like it's pulling a little bit towards the north, maybe an eastern, so we might have kind of shades of what we saw in game number 1 going over to that side of the map. Smiley even picking up an elimination in the feed. There goes the more aggression that we were kind of talking about from game to game.
This is problematic right now, though, for Silver Scare and Mel debating whether or not they want to continue that exchange, but instead, thinking better of it, they're going to fall back and just prioritize their next positioning, kind of circling around the outskirts of Outlaw Oasis. They got the storm closing in, but these early storm ticks, nothing for them to be all that worried about. They're more so just trying to make sure they don't get locked down amongst a bunch of other competitors surrounding them.
Yeah, but from one side of the map to the next, Ardu and Kitsy, they try to disengage out of Shogun, rotate to the zone very, very early on, but then they run into CC. Velocita there on the other side, and their team, they were very, very dangerous in that last game, but they were also very, very calculated. They don't take any fights unless they have to, and when they have to, they try to give themselves an early advantage, and that's why you see them kind of dropping off the side of the mountain and using that Flowberry Fizz to try to rotate in the zone, but under the radar.
Well, I think also lobby number 1 was a little bit of a wake-up call, too, for CC and Velocita. Unfortunately, you have to remember, they got that original down onto Smiley, and then Sophie just completely shut down their dreams of trying to capitalize for the full elimination. And so it's kind of just a steady reminder that even if you are a strong fragger, you still want to make sure that you're not getting too over-aggressive, too direct, because a little bit too much pressure, and it can be turned around so easily.
Yeah, and again, you see from zone 1 to zone 2, we continue to move on over towards the northeastern lane. You kind of seen it in the mini-map. Even though we don't see the actual zone, we kind of see where it's telling them to go. So it's forcing a lot of these teams on the southern eastern edge to have a mirrored rotation. Yes, they could try to use the launch pad on top of the mountain, but that puts them in a risky situation to get tagged all around the lobby.
Crocs and Sweet, though, tangled up right now with Sep and Denzi. And if they're not careful, both of these ladies, they might just find themselves getting a little bit smothered by some surrounding teams. Got teams a little bit southwest, a little bit north of their current position. But they're definitely taking their time. They want to be as calculated as possible with some of these fights because they know all it takes is one peak that was a little bit too overbearing, and they're the ones that are going to get turned on.
Yeah, and we talked about the time it takes to finish some of these fights. You see Supernova Academies at the edge of the zone inside. A lot of the teams that are still not in just yet are going to have to rotate in. Seps, Danzy, it looks like they're playing a little aggressive to try to take as much control over these pieces as possible, but they're also not going in for the 50-50. They're not playing over-aggressive. They're just taking as much of the space to where they feel comfortable and then kind of trying to just shoot the rest of the builds down. But from the high ground in the distance, there's so many teams watching this fight, and I think that's exactly why it's slowing down.
But that little bit of a tag is going to be enough for Crocs and Sweet to have a little bit more confidence, start trying to push towards the high ground. Good cutoff, though, by Danzy. Nice supportive measure just to buy a little bit of time here. Sep trying to see if she can get some shield going. But Danzy, she loses all of her shield. That's going to be a forced retreat here now as Sep and Danzy, they need to heal, Jacob. They don't want to continue this fight, especially knowing that there is still that team in the distance, kind of playing spoiler to their aggressive strategy.
Yeah, there's like the RVs is kind of what they call it over on that side of the map, where there's a ton of natural brick, and that's where you see teams that kind of either land or rotate over on that side of a split. They kind of just use the already made mountain plus the brick that they were able to get to build towers just like that, and they're able to see so much. And except Danzy, they kind of know they're being watched over the side of that mountain, so they're being very, very careful. And you can see exactly where they're angling themselves to where if a team is going to get third-partied, it's going to be the team that they're fighting because they're pushing them away in that direction.
And so many of our ladies are just being reminded that it's never just an immediate 2 versus 2. Spinor and Cat Attacks forced to retreat into the inner workings of the buildings nearby because they don't want to stay exposed and waste too much of their builds. Sure, it's nice to find more than one elimination at a time, but you still got to be very wary of other teams just immediately collapsing on you.
Yeah, you see they already have the med mists. They are in the black market as well. So we have a 75 gold here for Spinor, and I do believe it could purchase something, and I think that's why they're waiting as long as they are. Yes, we got med kits, we got splashes, we got the med mist itself. So we have a lot of resource here to stagger ourselves back, let a lot of these teams rotate in, and then that's where we can use, whether it's our crash pads or the natural launch pads that are on the map. That's what they're going to use to try to focus their rotation in when they eventually do.
They might also just be waiting it out to see if another team dares try to come near them inside of the black market. If they camp it early on, it could be very difficult for teams that might have had that mentality of, hey, we want to actually play for white kills inside of Storm for a little bit of a dead side rotation. But Cat, Spinor, they don't want to get overzealous. They're going to choose to move on out and try to get some locked-in positioning.
And last zone going into this one, we did have that vault open up, and it was a vault that was kind of over towards Gordy Gate, so there was a lot of ample opportunity to so many teams to rotate in that direction, either grab the exotic or the scraps that are going to be behind, because that bunker is full of metal as well. So if you do not land at one of those POIs that have one of the most precious resources in it, you could try to use that to try to accumulate what you need. But you're seeing a full rotation going through, and it's a smooth rotation as well. Even though they're building small roofs to try to cover themselves for the high ground, I don't think they've been tagged at once.
Yeah, they were going for that deep north wraparound dead side rotation. It could pay off so well for them. But for right now, checking in with Des and Pal and see how they've essentially moved out from that self position of Shogun Solitude. And we know They don't actually have to take that fight. The team not really seeming interested and just allowing them to kind of have that capture flag point control. But Yves and Pao fully aware of the fact that even crossing through Rolling Blossoms Farm, this is a very open area. And if you aren't careful, you could find all of your shield just disapparating in thin air.
Yeah, not only is it open, there's so many different terrains. You see Moxie and Regs right in front. They have a little bit of elevation before it kind of teeters off the side of that mountain, and they're using it to their advantage. They haven't really rotated until now because they know every team rotates in their direction. With that elevation, they got the surge, and now that they have the surge, it's on to the next step of their journey where they begin to rotate out. But as they do, they get tagged up by Yves. They get tagged up and jumped on by Pao. They're trying to take this fight quick. They're trying to take it early.
Playing a dangerous game right now, though, for Yves and Pao. Whether or not they recognize that this is Regs and Moxie doesn't matter because Xset's going to take the fight to them. Moxie already looking to try and play the pre-edit and still just waiting for the time to strike here. Pao even trying to shoot out the staircase. Moxie gets a little bit of a clip here, but it's still not enough damage is what she was hoping for. Regs, they're going to try to make a flank approach. And even better still, Jacob, they might realize, I don't know if this fight is even worth it for us.
And I mentioned early on that team was able to access that bunker in zone 2, and you can already see it is going to be Moxie, it is going to be Regs. They have the AR, but they're also getting pressured from all around. Regs at 100 HP, Moxie dropped to 41. The splashes are now coming out, but the pressure continues to push them forward. Yves, they're just feeling themselves right now, and they're feeling like they have full control over this fight as they continue to push Moxie and Regs back, not allowing them the ample time they need to heal up until now.
This is not something you would anticipate our game 1 winners, but there's the shot connection from Moxie. That's going to be a little bit of a bailout lifeline here because Pao and Yves, they were turning on the burners for a moment. Still want to remind everybody that there is ample talent in this lobby. And Pao, Yves, they're not looking to play for anything outside of first place here currently. They know if they can shut down Regs and Moxie right here, right now. There's a massive refresh, and so much has been invested from both of these teams. Jacob, they have to find a conclusion.
Yeah, I mean, you know that saying that goes around, you want to be the best, you got to beat the best. They're really trying to prove that so, but Regs, Moxie, they catch one slipping, trying to go for a flank. They get good amount of damage, but they continue to get pressured. I don't know what they came from. I don't know where they ate for breakfast, but Yves and Pao are putting on a show against the defending champions.
And what looked like such promising loadouts, too, for Regs and Moxie has now just been completely burned through. Moxie's got 17 builds left. Regs only had around 30 or so. They are stuck trying to hunker down inside the bottom of these boxes. And Jacob, they realize they can't actually press forward. There's too much commotion all around. They've drawn so much attention. Pao and Yves are going to be some of the first to rotate off back towards Kappa Kappa Factory, but so much damage has been done. Now they have to spend time refarming all of those builds.
Yeah, I was going to say, even if Moxie, Regs, or even if Yves and Pao on the other side win the fight, they're not going to get too much reward for it, other than Moxie's exotic if they were the ones to kind of win it, because you got to imagine on both sides, they used a lot of materials to fight that fight, especially for how long it went, but now neither one's going to win. They're at the bare minimum, and you can see exactly why Yves and Pao tried to rotate out, but Moxie and Regs continue to hunt. They stalk their opponent down and get at least one knock and elimination for it.
That is such a heartbreaking knock, too, for Pao and Yves. Just caught for a moment off guard. They ran right into our dupe, and that is just so unfortunate given how strong of a display they just put on with that box fight attempt. But that's going to be all the spacing that Regs and Moxie need. They found a little bit of wiggle room now to try and refarm some material.
Yeah, just kind of take the little time that they do have as the next zone pulls. And you can see they're very, very aware and cognizant of so many teams that are going to be nearby. It kind of closes up just a little bit more. So for every team that is on the south side of the map has to continue to pull towards the north. But I will say there's a little bit of blessing. A lot of the terrain where the zone is at now, there's not too many different elevation changes. So if you're one of those teams that beats everybody to the punch, that's where you'll have the advantage.
Karina and Rhea might be needing a refresh pretty soon here, though, Jacob, or to just encounter a little bit better options. They don't have a whole lot of utility to work with. Only 2 chug splashes for Karina. They're going to sit inside of the bush, just trying to reserve as much of their material count as they can, with Bread and Jules off in the distance in the scopes of Karina, but she doesn't want to give away their positioning just yet.
Yeah, but you see, kind of, even though they don't want to give away their position, they're like, oh my God, we're exposed, even though we're in a bush, because anybody can just blind fire through. We see so many teams kind of tag up these bushes as they're rotating to make sure they're safe, but in the feed, Rabrar is able to get the down on the POW, Sarlet's down as well, and you're seeing what's happening to these early game scuffles to where you invest so much and aren't able to finish the fight.
Leslie and Abby kind of waiting things out, but with only 31 above that damage threshold, Jacob, they're going to have to get active, and they're going to have to do it right now. They've already found Velcita. They're trying to see if they can capitalize on this moment, but CC going to turn things around in no time. Abby taken down. Leslie will be next. A huge play coming out of CC Nuggets at the final hour.
And even double so for Velcita, because even though CC went down, she made sure there was no cleanup going through. They're trying to get the revive, because you know as well as I do, once you start to go for that reboot, that's a huge signal to the lobby about how weak you are as a full team. So many players look back just to try to get the down. Canary in the feed trying to make up for lost time, getting an elimination. They're going to be able to clean that one up as B and Tokyo 276 above the damage threshold. They have these two eliminations, but what they lack right now, Taco, is materials and resources.
And they know that they've got a 2-tick zone right behind them. Storm just closing in, putting so much pressure. You can see B, she even had to cut that medkit short, knew that she had to get into zone off that crash pad with only one crash pad remaining. The bigger issue, Jacob, is that we're seeing this zone pull away from Utopia and Pumpkin Pass. There's no water around. The fishing rod's not going to be able to really play much of a part here. And B, Tokyo, they look like they are completely out of any form of healing.
I think there's one section. I think there might be one small
tiniest sliver.
section over towards the northwest of OXR. I'm not sure how easy it is for them to get there, but that is what they're looking for. Exactly. They have the fishing rod. They're looking for water. They have nothing in their inventory. No more med kits, no more shields. So they either need to find some sort of fishing hole or they need a refresh, something that is a huge risk and a huge reward if they can find it. Rin, Lena, a new team coming through this weekend. They got 141 damage above the threshold. They're able to rotate almost directly towards the center of this zone. So they're kind of set up, ready to handle whatever this game throws at them.
I did see B just now alongside Rin. Sure, they're on opposing teams, but Cat Attacks and Spinor unfortunately lobbied in the air. But that might be the extra little bit of a lifeline, a little silver lining there. If B and Tokyo can make it to those bodies, pick up any loot, it could be all the difference. At the very least, we know that B was able to get some siphon off of Spinor's elimination, so that's a big saving grace. But now, Vanessa, Liz, very competent fighters in their own rights. They've got CC and Velcita directly across from where they're currently positioned, but K-Moors and K also trying to take advantage of being in a slightly better position. They just don't have any HP, Jacob.
Yeah, and it's going to become a nightmare here soon, because once that Storm Surge activates, every 25 or so 7 seconds, you'll receive about 25 damage, whether it's shield or HP, and then you don't get knocked. You get straight eliminated out of the game, and you can kind of see they had no resources, so they're going to have the hunt for damage as we tune into Nina and Vader, just trying to heal up for this next rotation. They're on top of the mountain of OXR HQ, and I do believe they might be near a launch pad as well, so they have choices here. Crash pad with Fizz, launch pad, or just continue to rotate through that side of the mountain. They have their choices made.
You have to remember, this is Nina and Vader's backyard. OXR headquarters is home base for these two, and they've managed to find themselves in a pretty prime positioning. Smiley overhead, though. We saw her just be so destructive alongside Sophie in that last lobby, but now Vader, Nina, they're trying to make up for lost time in game one. They want to prove that they are very much still looking to try and take over that first place position. We've seen these ladies be very open about how they're going to try and win this weekend.
I was thinking they might have used the launch pad that they're rotated near, but it's too risky for them. They're just going to go ahead and huff it on foot, using the crash pad. No Flowberry Fizz this time around. It would have been too much of a risk to fly that high in the sky. But as they make it there towards the edge, you can kind of see Maddie, Sophie Ann, and so many teams that are looking back, that are trying to put pressure, said, nah. It is not going to be that easy. Vanessa and Liz, same thing for them, but all the way on the southern edge, kind of using that elevation to their advantage. Other ones at the bottom of the mountain.
They're definitely trying to be queens of the mountainside turf, but we'll have to see whether or not it actually pays out, because the zone could definitely pull away from this peak. And Liz, Vanessa, still trying to keep in mind that there are plenty of other teams more towards the lower end of that mountain base. So you don't want to get too over aggressive. We have seen decent amounts of peaks getting punished pretty heavily, but it's all about the Fizz crash pad moving towards that front side. A little unfortunate, but thankfully no one is able to look up to try and take advantage of those shots.
It's just Vanessa's like, no, nobody saw that, right? No, we did not see it. We see you rotating now, over 300 above the damage threshold. And because they're rotating so early, they're beating almost every other team to the punch up until now, to where one team begins to put pressure on as they rotate through. They're just slowing down, taking it one step in front of the other. They're not trying to bite off more than they could chew in any moment, because they are just one crash pad away from the zone.
It looked like no, like it actually followed their exact rotation off the crash pad. That's something that you have to remember when you are playing through these lobbies. We'll see oftentimes players shooting out their own crash pads so that other teams can't try and follow through, because it's so dangerous when you're making those rotations. You never know if another crash pad's going to come right on top of your head.
Back on over towards Harmony, where the hill is going. Nina and Vader using that crash pad as well. They're trying to conserve as much material as possible. A lot of the brick gone out of Nina's inventory, but they're also looking, seeing where they can catch anybody off guard. With a knock on to Tokyo, they immediately set their eyes and focus on to B. Elimination gets cleaned up. Even if it's not Nina and Vader's, they look at that loot as an ample opportunity to try to replenish their game, but it's stolen as soon as they look back. 400 above the damage threshold. They know peeking is not necessary. Just wait for the zone.
But it's still been a relatively rough rotation path, because we saw Nina and Vader, they were at max mats prior to this current position, and these max pools are just making it so difficult to keep trying to break through. Storm Surge now being active, though, you're going to start to see the desperation take place. That is something that Vader and Nina don't have to worry about for the time being, but all they want right now is to get their positioning on lock. They're trying to just catapult themselves straight towards next front side of zone, but they're also trying to just look for a less congested layer, and it's going to be tough here, Jacob, but they could also look to try and clean up teams in the low ground.
Yeah, they got an ample amount of materials because of their crash pad rotates. They're able to save it till the very end. They continue to keep their primary focus on the front side of the zone, because everybody knows those teams that are weak and might not have mats are going to be the ones hunting everywhere else behind. Maddie, Sophie-Ann doing yet again back-to-back games where they look to elevate themselves above everybody else. 204 damage above the threshold for Liz and Vanessa. I don't think for the rest of this game Storm Surge is a worry. It's all about their rotations.
They're running out of Fizz, though. They've got to be really careful here. In fact, they get cut off. They were starting to make their way forward, but the tarp immediately caught on the other side. That's going to force Vanessa and Liz to come to yet another pause. And these seconds that you lose on the rotation, Jacob, that just means another player, another duo potentially getting ahead of you. And so now Liz, Vanessa, they're just trying to be very cautious here as they move forward. They don't want to find themselves on the receiving end. In fact, it's going to be Sophia, who didn't even get a chance to look behind her. That's a great thumb up here for Liz and Vanessa finding that elimination.
Yeah, I saw so many players kind of lose their teammates and lose their spot in this lobby. 13 teams still alive, 24 players, which means we have 2 solos running around in a world full of duos as Liz and Vanessa get tagged up straight on their rotation, but a little bit of a blessing because they're using the natural terrain to try to hide themselves just a bit. Maddie, Sophie-Ann, 1 elimination so far, trying to perform here well in back-to-back games to keep themselves at the top of the leaderboard here for game number 2. Even if it means going through an old tarp, that they can recycle some of these builds.
But they know that they don't have enough materials to actually try and overtake the high ground. They're waiting for things to get a little bit more chaotic first. They got the pre-edit. They're finding some nice shots here onto Yaz. Not sure if they get the full credit for that one, but they might be able to make it towards the body loot, and restoring a little bit of that material count could be the difference maker. Instead, it's going to get swapped all the way down to ultimate low. They're trying to play towards the front side, but immediate turnarounds, and Maddie forced to try and use the last of her builds just to get a little bit of separation with the low ground, but she loses Sophie-Ann along the way. She doesn't have any builds either left to her name, just 10 Fizz and a whole cluster of players underneath her.
From down below in the mud, all the way at the top in the clouds, Nina and Vader are on the high ground. nobody really has a chance to look up, or at least not just yet. Smiley in the backside of the zone, just trying to heal off. Those extra placement points could go a long way, especially since there's an elimination getting cleaned up when they need it most. 8 teams still left alive, 11 players in this game. There's so many solos running around. Nina and Vader, they have this one in the bag.
Or at least you want to believe so. You never know, Jacob, when a last-minute bamboozle could break through, but it is going to be tough when it is Nina and Vader that are the ones holding the high ground. These ladies know how to keep total control here. And Daya underneath, Smiley still kicking. Vanessa and Liz also, but it might be Moxie and Regs that's going to be looking to try and get caught up inside of that exchange towards the low ground. But it's just like you said, Nina, Vader, they can let the lobby take care of themselves.
Yeah, they're just pressuring any team that's on that second layer, forcing everybody down below to clash. We saw the game 1 winners kind of end up in a scuffle where they went down early. Smiley trying to pre-fire. We already saw that one go down, but with no build, continues to scramble where they get toe tagged by Liz as her and Vanessa end up in a top 3 situation. Them two versus another duo on high ground, and then a solo who's continuing to try to run around and get these placement points.
Hey, this is a huge boon for Vanessa and Liz, though, acquiring all of these placement points. They still want to see whether or not they can outlast Daya, who's just holding off in the background, might be playing a little bit of feel off herself here, but Vanessa, she's going to find that knock onto Nina. The siphon could be the difference maker, but Vader, recognizing the danger, immediately crash pads away. She's going straight for the heal off.
Yeah, Siphon comes into play, another med kit, crash pads to continue to create distance. This might be a 1v2, but there was no chance. Vader went down as her and Nina take game 2 of the day.
It seems like high ground is making all the difference here, Jacob. And we haven't really seen too many hot potato instances of it getting passed around. Nina and Vader just held it down, and they did an excellent job, as you highlighted, suppressing that secondary height, forcing teams to clash in those low ground layers. It just makes it so much easier for them.
Yeah, timing to take high ground has to be perfect, because we saw Fran and Canary around 8th zone going into 9th. They were on high ground, but then they got the max pull on the moving zones. They haven't give it up. They crash pad off. And then from there, that was Moxie and Regs. They said, we are going to go ahead and take it. But no, they also got fought. They got pushed off high ground. So we're seeing throughout a couple of these games, something I don't seem to be seeing too often throughout the majors to get here, is so many teams are like, that's my high ground. That's my high ground. They're willing to fight for it all. But Nina and Vader, they were the last one standing up above. They pressured every team down below, forced them to clash. And even though it wasn't them getting the eliminations, it was them getting the win.
Hey, they were still putting on enough pressure to make it very problematic for all of our other contenders. But Jacob, that was the conclusion for lobby number 2. A huge shout out for Nina and Vader for bringing that Victory Royale home. But we've got plenty more action still to come, and we'll be right back after this short break. And just like that, game number 3, Jacob, the halfway point is so rapidly approaching. I mean, we're staring it down right now.
Yeah, we already have 2 different game winners, because I remember during the last main event online, we were looking at Frantic and Canary game 1, game 2, and then we were talking to each other like, what is the record for game wins? And right now, it's anybody's race still.
And one big shout out to Smiley and Sophia, because while we've got the highlight reel showcasing our Victory Royale winners from games 1 and 2, you have to remember, Smiley and Sophia, they've been top 3, both lobbies. That kind of consistency really does build up over time. And I wouldn't be surprised to see them quickly looking to try and sneak away with stealing the show out.
Yeah, especially coming from online. Everybody had their big 3, thinking, these 3 teams had a chance to win, and then a nice, consistent game plan kind of throws everything in a mix, as Mystic and Shadow Slayer looking to win their 3rd consecutive off-spawn fight. But it's almost going differently this time around. Every other time so far today, we've seen them in full control, and now they have their backs up against the wall.
You have to remember how many of these ladies are also looking to try and recalculate their opening strategies. But for Shadow Slayer, she catches that directly off guard. Kay was trying to make that sneak around play, but now Shadow Slayer on the worst end. That left side peek not going to be good enough, but Mystic, she is the final ray of hope here. and it's a fresh team entirely. Mystic completely caught off guard, and just like that, the tables have completely turned on them. A third party has come through.
And neither one of the teams in the initial contested fight are able to make it out alive. And that's what you call a perfect third party, because now you get two different teams worth of loot. You get a whole spot to yourself, plus where you originally landed. That's taking control, especially right before halftime. Try to get as many points, move up that leaderboard. Chloe, Ava, over on this side of the map, just trying to get some early game surge. You can see they already landed. They already got their loadout off of their drop spot. And now they're trying to get some storm surge as well as some additional loot along this path.
Yeah, always looking to try and defend that gas station. It is a prime source for some hard mats. And so Chloe and Ava don't want to forfeit this opportunity. At the same time, though, Jacob, you can definitely tell that recalculation of game plan, it's already begun. Teams are trying to get their foot in the door that haven't necessarily worked their way up the leaderboard. And I believe that third party we just witnessed might have actually been one of our teams coming down from first order base.
Ooh, just those daring plays, especially when you know it's a long, drawn-out contested fight. Similar to this year with B in Tokyo. Crocs and Sock Sweet on the low side. This is where they have a little bit of advantage being on the high ground. Double pump in Tokyo's loadout as well, and a clear angle on the Crocs, just creating a couple of shots, trying to give themselves as much of an advantage and confidence to continue to push forward.
Always have to be a little bit cautious here with the approach, especially since the build count's a little bit low. Tokyo going for that right side peek, and one more time. Another shot is going to connect this time, though, but slight whiff here into yet another shield chunk away from Crocs. Now Crocs and Sweet in their separate boxes. They're looking to try and reunite, but it's going to be all Tokyo and B just isolating Crocs and Sweet one after the other. That was a great flank approach too from B. She knew how much pressure Tokyo was applying towards that front side, just drawing so much attention that she was able to immediately go for that behind the back pop-up.
Yeah, it was insane teamwork too, because Tokyo went from one target to the next, knowing B was pushing into that box, and that's chemistry over time leading up until this point. As it looks like Alexis, Simone just kind of crouched down, hiding, waiting for somebody to rotate in this position. There is still a good amount of metal. There is still a good amount of brick that they can farm over on the split drop. It's just a matter, does anybody take that daring risk, knowing going into this game it was double contested?
And at the same time, when you've already got two eliminations to kind of kick things off, those surge damage thresholds, we haven't really seen them get too ridiculous just yet, but Simone and Alexis, they're looking to try and play their cards right. Depending on which way the zone keeps pooling too, they could actually commit a decent amount of time here just sitting idly by. Whether or not that's what they fully stick to, well, we'll only have to wait and see, but I do like the intention. They already completely threw off both the teams that were fighting each other at this position, so I don't think anybody would necessarily expect them to still stick around.
Yeah, I kind of think they would kind of continue that loop path, try to get all the scraps that they won off of that fight. Rainbow Field as congested as we see in some of the previous games. 4 teams over on this side of the map, but one of them is getting access to that bunker where you can get at least one exotic for free and a bunch of extra loot and metal if you do need it. So Andrea, Delphi, does look like they were going to try to sneak attack a team rotating through, but talked about 5 teams being here. As soon as you peek and start to put shots, some teams might look at you as not paying attention and try to awareness check you.
Or also just trying to see whether or not other teams are going to maybe try and pinpoint their location over by the Rolling Blossoms farm. But Nolik, Botley, got Liz and Dolo in their sights, but that dip down into a little bit of lower terrain is going to provide a nice little safety net. Instead, Nolik going to opt to try and shoot Layla out of the sky. Just needs a handful more shots to connect, but the moment that some shots ran out, Nolik immediately, it's like a beacon to everyone else in the lobby. She's going to have to duck back down into the safety of their builds. Doesn't want to overextend.
Just kind of showing exactly what I was talking about. As soon as you start to fire off on another team, everybody's looking in your direction and seeing, hey, how much attention are you actually paying? They hit a quick awareness check, but that's not too worrisome for me, because if you see the zone right now, there's edge all the way on that western side. So right now they're going to have to leave that spot on the map anyway, so might as well be proactive. Resource management, get some extra materials, and try to get a prior position in zone.
Okay, Nina, the Vader, this is a little disgusting. even for you two, but I respect it. This is a competition at the end of the day, Jacob. And coming off the back of that second lobby victory royale, Nina and Vader, they're just looking to try and extend any form of a lead. They know that they're going to be able to spot out anyone and everyone that's rotating around these center map positions. And even for teams that are a little bit further out, they have such a long line of sight. It could be very difficult for some rotations to actually break through.
Especially since you can kind of see there's no outer zone of where they were at. So they have a while to wait before they have to rotate. Canary and Fran, 2 eliminations, contested off spawn, I do believe, this time around, or maybe landing at Predator's Peak to try to get some AR tags, and that's how we're able to clean those up. But now that they've looted both the entirety of Canaan's Crossing, both the top and the bottom, you see them trying to rotate through. And this has been like the third consecutive game to where Canary and Fran have had to rotate towards the northeast, so far away from their actual drop spot. I hope third time is the charm for them as they continue to pick up the pace.
And it's surprising, too, to see the level of struggle that they've actually encountered throughout the course. I know it's only been 2 games so far. I know that this is the 3rd lobby, Jacob, but I think most everyone here, even the competitors themselves, can attest to the fact that they were kind of expecting a much more explosive endpoint for Frantic and Canary. But hey, all it takes is one good lobby, and they have more than enough fighting power behind them to find those crazy double elimination sequences into a strong potential victory royale. And if they can get a huge swing of points in their favor, it could make all the difference there, especially since they're uncontested at Canyon Crossing. They've got to be scheming something.
Yeah, it goes for them, but any other team in this game as well. 3rd game right before the half. You don't even have to necessarily win, but maybe a top 5, couple eliminations. Start to build that confidence and momentum going into the second half of the day. Depending on where you're at on the leaderboard, kind of dictates kind of your game plan. If you're going for that first place spot, might have to look to get a little bit more aggressive, or maybe just kind of last just a little bit longer in some of these games as we tune on over to Ardup and Kitsy over at Utopia City. 3 teams here, but the way Utopia is kind of built, you can house 3 teams in 3 different surge bases. It's the rotation after that becomes worrisome.
It seems like the only intent here right now from Ardup and Kitsy is out of sight, out of mind. They're not trying to get flagged down by either of those surge bases, especially knowing that Kitsu, Panda, and Go are just kind of surrounding the area. They just want to farm the materials, play it safe, and probably rotate after those teams have already moved out. But Blissey, Mel's getting a little bit more proactive with the action. They know that they need some kind of a refresh. They want to find themselves a little bit of a stronger material count, a little bit stronger loadouts too. They might be able to fight this one out with Malinke, but it could be problematic here, Jacob, because one little hiccup is all it takes for a third party to come through.
Yeah, you already got one on the western side of where they're actually at, on a mountain as well. And then over towards the north, you see that one small, little, lonely orange arrow. It's probably teammates nearby, but they have access to that bridge. And it's not the bridge that I'm worried about. It's the elevation you get from Pumpkin's Pass. You could go on top, see the entirety of every team having to rotate in, because, again, you see where the zone is heading. Over towards the north, over towards the east. And so hopefully these teams have planned for this already with 3 games now going in this direction.
Oh, and see, Blissey, she's going for the window peak, but she gets shot at from a completely different direction, even further east of where they are currently based. And so Blissey, Mel's, that seems to be the overriding deterrent. They don't want to try and continue that fight, but Canary and Frantic, on a completely different note, they're all about the fighting. And they want to see if they can break open Layla and Sorlet's defenses. Canary kind of leading the charge here currently. Most feared 15-year-old fragger out and about. Just got her first official earnings not too long ago, and we could see that confidence in her gameplay. Big chunk out of Sorlet's HP, and Canary just keeping the pressure going through. This is so dangerous now for Sorlet. She's doing everything that she can to try and see if she can buy herself a little bit more time, but it's just going to be Canary, Frantic, side by side, taking down Layla and Sorlet.
Yeah, unfortunately, though, the Sorlet one, even though it was Canary that hit that huge haymaker, dropping down the shield and the HP, it was Melanie in the distance actually stealing away that elimination. One more point for them. Another couple of points for Canary and Fran, kind of looking at them to start heating up and taking over some of these lobbies. And you're seeing the biggest difference from the first 2 games prior to this one is their prioritization of rotating in towards the center of the zone, or as quickly and close as possible, because that was kind of ailed them in games prior, having to stagger back, having to leave that zone and force themselves into the stack side overall.
But the way that Canary and Frantic are rotating, Jacob, it really does appear like they're trying to key and make up for some very missed out points. Even though the elimination points, they can still accrue over time and make a pretty big difference here. But it's really just about clearing out a path. They want to be in an uncongested area, and what better way to do it than by eliminating everybody around you?
This is the zone. Rift Pods starts to come into play, and Rift Pods are very, very useful for anybody's loadout. You get those slurp juices, you get some extra resources for your entire loadout and continue pushing through. Right in the center of the map. I want to say maybe it was Frantic and Canary with their quick rotations able to get it. Red and Jules just kind of farming up whatever resources they do need. A lot of it is going to be that wood, and it's kind of like that double edge to where, yes, you get your resources, but once you start tearing down these trees, it's a huge giveaway to anybody looking in that direction.
That's what I was wondering about, is you just start seeing some of that tree line disappear. I do like that Brett is still making sure to check some of these bushes, though. You can never assume that they are completely uninhabited, especially with the way that we've seen plenty of lurk and sneak attempts already. But Andre, Delphi, kind of just hanging out outskirts of Utopia. We've got Haley and Rising right next to them, and neither of them seems all that content with where they're currently boxed, but also not really convinced they should look for that immediate fight either.
Yeah, it's tough to peek on this side of the map. As the zone continues to push everybody towards the north, that means everybody's going to rotate in and find their spot on the south side. You can see maybe 10 teams already here. Andrea and Delphi's, they're being very, very careful and calculated about when and where they peak. Only thing is, for Andrea, you got the Fury, so it's not accurate as far away. You're going to have to kind of tap it in order to get that damage. But once you get a little bit closer to the next couple of zones, that's where you're going to find a lot of that reward as Canary and Fran run down Lavish Lily, able to clean up that elimination. Their 4th one overall. I do believe Lavish Lily's teammate was able to get out alive, but for Canary and Fran, this is confidence continuing to build, and this is looking like a scary situation for the lobby as we continue down this track.
But Canary, not necessarily looking too healthy when it comes to the materials. I have to keep steady tabs, steady reminders. But there's the huge swing, turn around. Former loot pile left behind from a fight that they had recently conquered, and now this is what's going to give them so much time to decide. Do we continue trying to key everyone in this lobby, or do we want to start playing a little bit more, shifting in that positional line? Because we know Moxie, Regs, Vader, Nina, they're going to be looking for the high ground, and Canary and Frantic, if they want to turn this conversation back into their favor, they're likely going to have to do the same.
See him just picking through the cone, getting information from both the north-south sides, even the east and west. But since they're in the middle of the zone so far, they're not going to have to rotate. Every team from the southwest continues being forced all the way up towards the northeast. 3rd consecutive game with a zone this similar. But for Ren and Lena, they do have crash pads, but they're going to go ahead and use this one without the Flowberry Fizz, and it's a huge question mark if they even have it.
And if you don't have that Flowberry Fizz for the crash pad, it is going to take a little bit more of a time sink, and that extra little bit of investment, all those seconds lost, it might be the reason why you find yourself kind of getting stuck on the next edge of zone. All of the congested area, too, from that south side position. I mean, we were looking at so many teams from the western portions of the map that are just having to go cross-country with it.
Yeah, it continues to be terrifying for some of these teams. And you mentioned, like, without the Flowberry Fizz, the crash pad is, you got to be precise, and you kind of burn through a lot of those crash pads just trying to cover the distance. But Michaela, Lulu, they're 100 damage below the threshold. Another max pull. And typically, you know, when we're rotating zones like this, when you're in the back, everybody screams at each other, stop tagging me, just rotate the zone. But they're not having that luxury. For Lulu and Michaela, they have to rotate. They have to land damage, because once it activates every 7 seconds, 25 damage. And yes, they have the heals to potentially out-heal it, but then what will you have for endgame?
Every time somebody mentions those late rotations and not like stopping to shoot. All I can think about is the Aussie Antics clip where he's narrating over for Doxy being the example of, hey, you see how there's a player there and he didn't shoot at him because he knows if I shoot at him, I'm not going to be in a good spot. Like Spinor wishing that she wasn't getting shot at right now as during cat attacks. They don't get the chance to take their crash pad. It's been destroyed. And this could be a serious issue now for Cat and Spinor. It's very obvious that there are other teams looking their direction. And with Cat being down to her white HP, same for Spinor. Just slivers hanging on by dear life. But Spinor, Cat, they will manage to just barely scrape out of this one alive.
Hey, if they're able to go towards that eastern edge, there's not as many teams there. It's almost a clear path all the way until you start to see the zone on the other edge. So this might be a blessing in disguise for them if they can just get that shield up. I know there's no HP. Looking around the map, kind of seeing how tough it is for some of these teams towards the outside to rotate, but you're seeing how safe it is for teams like Noelic and Botley who already have their spot in zone. They're already 500 above. It's almost a sit and wait situation because getting up to where they're at now is not even easy.
I am seeing Moxie and Rez getting active inside of that elimination feed though. Noelic, Botley, they spot trouble on the horizon here for Lulu. They want to go ahead and just knock this one out. Michaela will be Noelic's first elimination, but another team still on the opposite end of these walls. But Noelic doesn't want to get too over-aggressive, and that bump shot is going to be enough for Noelic to decide to fall back. She's got Botley, though, to play support here, and does have shield to restore, but it's still a big shutdown and a very solid reminder that there's no such thing as a safe fight.
Yeah, I'm just kind of looking at the inventory right now. Noelic was able to kind of recuperate some of that HP, but you're seeing in the inventory, Botley, a missing item slot and bandages. Just goes to show that even though they have a good amount of material, they are going through it as of now, just trying to replenish what they can if they find themselves a golden opportunity. But that's Rin on the other side. That's Lena as well. That's not an easy team to take down by any means. And that's why you see them just gathering as much information and waiting for the zone to force them out.
And we also just saw that pan over of K and K-Morris, another team that can be rather difficult to try and deal with when you're already trying to handle so much existing pressure from teams in the area. But Tokyo B, solid elimination onto Dolo. A little bit of a refresher here. And now they might just sit tight for a moment, wait to see where some of these other teams are rotating through. But if it can come down to it, they definitely want to try and maintain a position on front side of zone.
Yeah, this is where their opportunity is. Peek through the comb, gather information. If they look towards the north, which would be their left, they're going to see 3 teams outside of the zone having to rotate in and 3 more teams just there. They look to the other side, they see a very, very similar situation. So for Tokyo and B, they might want to focus on just white lining their way directly in towards zone. It may not be the safest thing by any means, but it looks like they're going to move towards the south first before they try to find their way in, using the natural terrain to as much of their advantage as possible.
Hey, they'll take it. That one baby tag is nothing in the grand scheme of things here. In Tokyo B, they've immediately shifted into a substantially better position. Still holding fast, though, not entirely sold that this is the right opportunity to try and actually look for any form of a high ground take. But we know that these are 2 competitors that have shown a lot of solid consistency in the past. We've seen them in top 5 circumstances throughout the qualifiers, and I think right now here today, that's all that Tokyo and B are looking to try and replicate is that past performance success, and we know that they have the potential for it.
Yeah, I was about to say, we know they have that pop-off potential, can take over games, even win one overall, move up that leaderboard. It's all about what chances and opportunities not only are you given, but you really take advantage of. Smiley and Sophia. Honestly, throughout these 2 games, them going down was due to their aggression and putting themselves in just weird spots, taking fight after fight, using a lot of their materials, forced to take other fights just to replenish. This time around, it does seem like they're taking a little bit more of a slower approach, 200 damage above the threshold, only peeking when they have to. Danzy was getting targeted, and they said, hey, let me just join that party for a minute.
Smiley and Sophia have been some low-ground demons so far today, and I absolutely love to see them really showcase where they feel the most confident, because it does seem like they prefer just trying to take over that front side low, and it has caused a lot of issues for teams that have been forced to kind of drop layers because they ran out of materials or they feel like they got too big of a chunk of their HP taken out. Well, there's Sophia and Smiley just waiting to gobble them up if teams aren't careful. But now Crashpad, Fizz, and take them exactly where they want to be, hanging out on a little bit of elevation, but still having a chance to look back and apply some pressure to the teams that are behind them.
Yeah, and while some teams might be getting struck by Storm Surge right now, they're at least 145 above. And instead of just trying to beeline it to zone, they're still trying to take opportunities where they can to try to catch anybody off guard. Vanessa, Liz, they're right above. So Sophia, Smiley, they're just going to go right back down in towards their box and get ready for the next crash pad. Flowberry, Fizz rotate. Especially so, that zone is starting to open up. You're seeing everybody fly to the sky. Liz takes some damage, but not a ton. Smiley over jumps it, but it takes just a second to find their way back. Now Sophia's just trying to get aggressive onto Liz, but the third party, the fourth party, the pressure coming from the top of the mountain is going to negate everything.
Yeah, it's a smart layer drop here for Smiley and Sophia as one more time, they're just looking to see if they can try and capitalize on any players that get a little bit too isolated. That was almost the end of it for Liz. Fortunately, Sophia just got some straggle pressure from a different direction as Lena, Rin, 3 eliminations so far, Jacob. And it's put them in a really nice position for their surge threshold. They're just hanging up one layer above that ultimate low.
Yeah, they have about 4 med kits, some splashes as well. They don't necessarily need to be scared to kind of stagger themselves back in the zone if they need it, especially if they find themselves as a solo. You're seeing they're continuing the proactivity, peeking through the cones, editing out, just trying to fire shots. Nina and Vader in back-to-back games on the high ground in the 9th zone. And much easier this time around, starting at the OXR HQ, haven't had to move far, and they're really taking advantage of where they landed and how they played this game so far. With the zone pulling forward, you've seen them getting ready because they know they're going to have to crash pad off height and rebuild if they want to conserve as many materials as possible.
That's a bit disastrous, though, for Moxie and Regs because they were definitely already trying to set up for that high ground hole, but that shield crack is going to force them to retreat, going to force them to have to play their own lives with the shield, and so that's going to be the green light for Nina and Vader to continue this height hold. But even being 635 above the damage threshold, Jacob, Nina just barely catching that Flowberry Fizz at the last second, but she's lost almost all of her shield. Only 1 tick of it remains. Still, they have managed to finagle their way back towards the high ground. Vader doing a great job to start tarping out a little bit here to alleviate some of that pressure, but the build count is not where it needs to be to hold on to this.
Yeah, that chop costed them a lot, and even though they have the high ground now, they know a team is underneath waiting to do it once more. Could be Moxie, could be Regs, could even be Frantic and Canary, but for now, Moxie, Regs, they're in the tough mid layers, so they're just trying to move their way through. 5 builds onto Moxie, so they're just simply trying to get an elimination. They need that siphon. They look back, that's Fran, that's Canary, but with the zone pushing him, they're not going to be able to fight it, or at least not right now as Moxie runs out of builds. Another team right in front. She's just scrambling to find anything that she can on the other side of this one. It's going to be bot lane. Regs now enters into the mix, and they get the elimination.
That was a lot of damage applied, though. Moxie doesn't get the siphon since Reg's going to be the one credited for that elim, but Nina, Vader, they're just looking to cut their way through. They've actually managed to find a position in the low ground, but they don't have front side. That's going to be Tokyo and B all day long as Taya, Yaz, silently hidden 1 layer above ultimate low. It seems like everyone is in tatters directly underneath, gazing the goals, doing everything in her power to try and stay up and running. Same case scenario for Lily and Kels, even investing into the med mist early on. She's going to leave it up to Kels to try and create a little bit of a space, a little bit of a gap for them to work their way into. But Canary, she goes down. Smiley takes out Vader. It's been such a big scrap fest underneath, and no one has seemed to benefit from it.
Even Nina's down in the feed as well. So many teams that kind of look at as the ones to beat are already in shambles, lost their teammates. 4 different solos running around. Smiley is going to be one of them. She sees Nina on the other side. It's actually going to be Moxie. She gets the elimination. That's going to be a cleanup, and that's Moxie and Regs down.
But wait, think about the fact that Smiley, Sophia, they've top 3'd all day long, and it seems like Smiley, she might be going for the solo effort to bring this one home. 3rd time's the charm after all, but Smiley, she's got so much to work with in comparison to some of these other ladies, and now directly in her sights, she recognizes that it's B underneath there, but she doesn't want to take that fight just yet. She's still hoping for a solo that she can try and clear out. Frantic might just be the next target. She's scrambling. She has no build. She's doing so much damage to try and keep herself up, but Daya comes out with the better end of that exchange. Tokyo TOMB, though, still as a duo rolling through this, Jacob.
Our final 3 teams remain. Yaz is getting pressure. The zone is also taking out HP from Tokyo and B. They're scrambling towards the outside. They have no builds. High ground's looking down. No matter who wins this, they're hoping to take it all. Tokyo and B are going to fall. Daya's doing what she can. Rogo's going to be the last one left. Her teammates there, neutral as well on the high ground, and they're pressuring down below. They have this one in the bag, and even just in case, the 2 med kits. We've already seen this go down with Vader last game, and they're trying it now, but early.
But the hesitation is because there aren't any builds remaining here for neutral. She sees Daya. She misses the shot. That's going to be the opening factor here, Daya. And yes, they find that first elimination onto neutral. How much does Rogo have left to work with? Are there any heals that she can even find? Yaz has spotted her out, but Yaz doesn't get a chance to actually close the gap. She can't make it through in time. Daya does still have 2 medkits left to work with, but Rogo, she doesn't get the siphon, and it's going to be Exet Daya bringing this one home. You have to remember, Jacob, she was the other member for our Milk Cup Championship last year.
Yeah, she is the other reigning, defending Milk Cup champion and really proving it so in that game. Really not letting up off the gas. I like the effort from Rogo, using those med kits, but just went a little bit too early. They had more than enough on the other side. They followed the zones through and through. Even though they didn't get the siphon, you said it yourself, the 2 med kits versus a heal off that started early. A world of difference for Daya and Yaz. Congratulations to them winning the 3rd game.
It's always a little bit devastating if you're in neutral's position. You could see a little bit of that panic kind of set in place when she was trying to find that initial pump shot. Unfortunate that it didn't actually end up connecting, but ultimately 2nd place is still a huge swing for those placement points, Jacob. And I think that a lot of these ladies, they've got nothing to complain about because it's the halfway point. They have a great chance to try and turn things around, and we'll see what happens next after this break.
On an even playing field here goes to show it is truly anybody's chance to take that 1st place spot and get your name added to that amazing Milk Cup trophy and take home both of those medals.
Whether or not we're going to see somebody choose to rewrite the narrative, because again, Jacob, we're looking at Sophia and Smiley leading the charge in 1st place, but it is only a 5-point gap. But they have not fallen underneath that top 5 threshold for all 3 matches so far here today. Daya and Yaz also looking to try and rein in. Daya, she's got a championship title to try and defend with a completely different teammate.
Yeah, and that's something that's not necessarily easy. You got to rebuild the chemistry. You got to rebuild everything going from one teammate to the next. And it's even harder because you know as well as I do, every season the Fortnite meta is changing, especially with Fortnite Myers additions coming into the mix. The loophole took another bit of a turn. Asana and Silver Lab, they are looking for one. Emperor, they're down below, but they're hovering over, using the water. Hopefully you're going to try to use this to get across and try to get that extra peek of the angle. But Emperor's hiding inside of the water. It might not be easy to see, but I was wrong. Quickly gets spotted out. Little Bill's left. Emperor's just trying to hide and buy time, but with no teammate coming to the rescue, it does look like it's going to be a tough situation. Breaks into the box, breaks the shields, and Sana finishes off Emperor and her duo.
Emperor nearly turned that one around. Still a little bit of a delay there for Sana and Silverlab, but they are just so far southwest from everybody else. They might have drawn a little bit of attention from those teams that are still kind of hovering around Shogun's Solitude, but when you are playing from these fringe map positions, finding those early eliminations does make a huge difference. Because right now, Silver trying to keep a tab on Edith, but this is a dangerous position when you've got 2 players honed in on you.
Spot him out. Looking like they're going on a little bit of a chase here. It's possible points. Placement, which is so important. Especially, this is the second half of the day. A lot of these teams got to see where they're at on the leaderboard, what is the point differential, and kind of formulate a little bit of a strategy from one game to the next to figure out how they're going to pick up the pace. First door to base, just as contested as you've seen the spot, honestly, right down below. Mystic and Shadow Slayer have been fighting almost all day long. So it almost seems like every one of our good POIs, except for a few, are all contested.
And Nisui trying to get a couple of tags in onto Kells, but she'll immediately throw up a couple cones overhead, try and cut off that line of sight. But the moment that you are scouted out, and with that capture flag having already been taken over, Mata and these, they're just taking their sweet time here. They know that Kel's a little bit more locked down. She's kind of stuck on that northern edge of First Order. And they can hold down this direction for as long as they want to, but Spinor and Cat Attacks getting a little bit risky here. It's like box fight taking place.
Yeah, trying to play aggressive on the Blurina all the way north side of the map. Blur with a nice cone edit, able to save a couple seconds, but goes down to the 2v1. They continue to press forward. They're not even necessarily worried about the knock, or at least not at this point in time. They get the back wall, and they get the second elimination as well. Even with Spinor going down, it's going to take them no time at all to get right back on up.
That was a great wraparound, too, from Cat. She just let Spinor take the brunt of that aggression. And, hey, it doesn't matter if I get knocked. As long as you were there to clutch the revive for me, that's all I need. But a good shout to the Blurina. They've been trying to make the most with that exchange. It's just unfortunate. That's how the cookie crumbles sometimes. And they're not the only ones that seem to be on the receiving end of some aggression early on. Nia and Mani currently duking things out. But just going to choose to sit and buy a little bit more time inside of the lower layer. They don't necessarily have a whole lot of builds to split between them.
And on top of that, you can see Nia, the inventory, the ammo, 7 shots left in the shotgun, 33, about 1 clip left in the Fury. So they know timing is of the essence. If they're going to fight this, they have to end it quick before they put themselves in a terrible situation. Manny just trying to take a couple of shots. The bait switches in. Nia gets a knock onto one. That's Michaela boxing in. They're just trying to continue to push forward, but they're just not peeking at the bad time. Both of them, it's just 1 shot away from going down. That means Nia's going to clean up the elimination, get the siphon for the HP, but there's no extra shields in the inventory. And for Nia, only 3 extra shotgun shells.
And that's where things are really going to get tough here for Lulu. Even with Mani being about half HP, same case scenario for Nia, they've still got the advantage of just 1 more body that they can actually try and break through. And Lulu knows best. She'd rather try and make an effort for that reboot card. And Nia, Mani, they're gonna watch that one kind of fizzle out of their control. They don't really have a means to try and give chase just yet.
Yeah, hopefully she was able to grab the reboot card before disengaging out with that launch pad, able to cover distance. So hopefully if the reboot card is there, we'll see his duo back together yet again. Simone and Alexis rotating south all the way from the north and kind of looking at this side of the map, just the mini-map alone, we finally got a different zone. For the first 3 games, we were going north, we were going east. This time around, it looks like we're heading south for the winner.
And we'll get a chance to kind of spectate how these ladies manage to adjust to those instances, because Simone and Alexis, they seem like they're still a little bit interested in just trying to head north to try and see what they can scavenge the leftovers. Even with all these pre-existing builds surrounding them, they don't really seem all that bothered by it. And Simone, Alexis, maybe they're hoping that they can try and cut off the team that's even further north from where they're currently based at, but they might have to do a little bit of a time sink here.
Yeah, jumping on board Vanessa and Liz coming into this game, Taco. They were about 6th place, 131 points, and they're so close to continuing this tempo and moving inside of the top 5, just shy about 10 points down, which means if any of those teams inside of the top 5 go down early, Vanessa and Liz could overtake them in the standing, especially with how well they have been playing all day long. Some solo clutch performances, team clutches coming out. Their chemistry is unmatched.
I could be mistaken here, but every time we panned over Vanessa and Liz, I've heard a couple cheers in the audience there, so clear support. But Smiley, Sophia, this is absolute catastrophe. I don't want to call it a caster's curse just yet, but Melanie and Scare have completely shut down our leading duo in this 4th lobby. That is a huge blow for Smiley and Sophia and everyone else that's already hovering that top 5 of the leaderboard, just lighting up right now the moment that they peak that elimination feed.
Yeah, Yaz, Daya, Moxie, Reg, 2nd and 3rd place right below. Probably saw that one in the feed, and they're smiling. This is our chance to not only take control, but take the lead. Bot lane, Noelic, we know how aggressive they have been so far in the early game, trying to get that Storm Surge accumulated quickly, so that way they have their freedom to rotate later on in the game. But those third parties still playing a role in these games. As soon as they peak, get a little bit too comfortable, putting pressure down, they get tagged up just a little bit, forced to kind of rethink the situation and build a full base for this fight. So Lilith continued to try to play for a little bit of piece control. Does look like she got the force out of position, but only momentary as Liz looks to get a little bit more aggressive. They continue to climb up on top of the mountain, but the third-party shots yet again disrupting both of these teams.
Hey, that's some nice space control, though, from Noah Lick, just completely shutting down all of those efforts by Liz and Dolo to try and break through towards the high ground, and now it's going to be a little bit of a swapsies here. So Noah Lick drops down, bot lane, going to continue to hold on to height. They're just trying to see if they can cut off angles right now from Liz and Dolo. But knowing that those ladies are kind of just stuck on the low ground, it's a game of chicken here to see who's going to be the first to try and punch through. But Botley and Noah Lake, they seem to be in the driver's seat for right now.
Yeah, but timing is of the essence. We already know the zone is pulling south, so more and more teams from the north will eventually rotate in that direction. So even though they might think they have the freedom of timing now, you almost got another thing coming, especially with the third party already there. Malinka, Ema, just trying to pressure down from above, building full boxes to try to negate any attempt from the third party. First cone, now they're going for the floor. Both of them are able to grab that one. They're just taking piece by piece by piece and just kind of pushing Mel's and Blissey around.
Mel's and Blissey, they're doing a great job at still trying to stay together. Hip by hip is your best effort at turning things around. Should they get a little bit dicey here, but Malinka and Emma, they don't seem convinced that they have enough of an advantage to just outright try and key Mel's and Blissey. In fact, they might even have other intentions entirely, Jacob, to just leave. We're seeing the Flowberry Fizz have to be expended, and we know how precious that is for making rotations. So with this fight now being a little bit more drawn out than what they've probably been hoping for on both ends, Malinka and Emma, they almost seem as if they feel like they have to take this fight.
Yeah, and you already see that team towards the west on the mountain. Another team creeping in from Pumpkin Pass. And you see why they're full boxed up. And man, Mel's with a big shot, taking down the shields of Malinke. Kind of holding her ground, though, waiting to see if a double peek's going to come through. His aim is just getting pushed off to the side. Blissey's getting pressured. They're trying to put the back there and take control of these pieces. Mel's, Blissey, they continue to reunite in the same box. It's just the timing to heal isn't necessarily there up until now.
But it's still surprising to think that Malinka and Amma, they have completely chosen to all-in commit this fight. Malinka gonna get a chance to utilize one of these small shield potions. Amma just looking to play supportive measures, keep that aggression fading forward here, but she still just can't break into the box. Mel's and Blissey just continue to navigate, find some space control with Blissey from overhead. She finds herself losing all of her shield there to Amma, and now panic starting to set in here. Amma's gonna find one alongside Malinke, and it's gonna be the total shutdown just in the nick of time. They needed this refresh because they've got more teams coming from Pumpkin Pass.
Yeah, even though they're getting kind of tagged up, they're going to have more than enough time to heal. They can't close the distance fast enough as Maddie's going to be left by herself. Sophie Ann actually goes down much earlier than anybody would have hoped. They got one elimination onto that team, so that's Abby on the other side that actually picked up the elimination onto Sophie Ann. But instead of continuing to fight out a 1v1, Maddie's looking to disengage with the crash pad, knowing that, hey, I can go back. I can get my teammate's reboot card later, but for now, I need the HP, I need med kits, I need bandages, or like she just found the med mist.
Look, we knew that the halfway point was going to give the ladies an opportunity in that break between to try and think about what their next steps would be, to put themselves in the best position, to try and acquire some placement points for that leaderboard positioning. And one thing, though, that our ladies did get a chance to mention to us, Gazing Nicole specifically, she's talking about the fact Surge is so hard to come by. That doesn't seem to be the case in this lobby, Jacob. Things are scrappy from the get-go, but Maddie exhibiting some pinpoint pressure here. That's a great knock to find. Unfortunately, she can't lock it down all the way. She's actually going to get chased, ring around the rosy momentarily here, shooting out the crash pad even to try and prevent any form of a follow-up from Abby.
Yeah, with Leslie being down, Abby has about a minute to try to get that revive before she gets cleaned up yet again. Good damage by Maddie. The med mist is there as well. And for Maddie, you getting this siphon could be fruitful. Landing a couple of shots and immediately trying to take advantage and clean it up while she can. Abby's just trying to heal with the med mist. That's a giveaway if you have the audio visuals, which you know Maddie likes to use. Just like anybody else, Leslie gets cleaned up. Siphon comes in. I'm not sure if Maddie was able to get the reboot card or not, but she's more than just winning this situation.
Maddie's more than happy to just take her W. 2 eliminations. And it is going to be an uphill battle still, Jacob, because making it towards a reboot ban, it is only going to get more difficult as the mid-game continues to progress. But still exhibiting some great fighting power It takes a lot to not mentally throw yourself out of it when you lose your duo, but at the same time here, Maddie, she's familiar with working under pressure.
Yeah, and it's even more so pressure going into the second half of the day. You lose your teammates, but you're in 4th place on the overall leaderboard coming into this game. And it just goes to show that what we were talking about, the clutches out of each of those respective players and as a team just seemingly popping off today. It's Balsita and CC trying to do the same thing on the other side. All the way on the western edge, you can see that's where the edge of the zone is. So we do got a southern zone all the way this time around, but it continues to pull towards the east. Couple more zones to know where it's actually going to go overall, but for CC and Balsita, they're just playing careful. They're waiting for Sana and Silverlap to make a mistake, over peak, maybe even start to rotate out, and that's where they're going to try to strike.
The other thing I'm curious about, though, is that with the way that the zone is starting to close in onto Dreamy Domain, there's so many trees surrounding this forest line, and that can provide a lot of natural coverage. We've seen so many of our ladies here today kind of struggling to preserve their build count, but when you've got natural coverage from the map itself, what better way to kind of set up a little bit of alert play or just like some kind of sneak attack strategy? Balsita and CC, this is almost like the calm before the storm. They look like they're ready to spring into action.
Just looking off into the distance, she saw Kay and Madi just kind of crash pad their way on top of a whole nother team, whether they expected to fight or not. That awareness is big because just another tag, 30 more damage out of the Storm Surge leaderboard. So even though they're right next to a team, kind of hunkered down, they both know each other is there. But since they're at the edge of zone, they don't have to rotate. They don't want to take the risk. And that's exactly what Nicole was talking about.
This has got to be so awkward, though, when you just know that you've got a team breathing down your neck. They don't have crash pads either. At least CC doesn't have any to her name. I don't believe Balsita has any either. And a great pump. Not exactly primo fighting power, but CC is a crazy fighter nonetheless. So I could still see her making something out of nothing, but it is going to be very difficult. Madi and Kay, though, a little bit caught out by Scars, but it's going to be Madi who gets the first strike in. That's a really nice elimination onto Scars, and that's going to be the forced disengage. But poor Ada, she doesn't have the chance. She knows that she's going to get completely ran down here by Madi and Kay.
Yeah, you see she's able to kind of disengage for now, but the crash pad has been found by Madi. She sees the builds up above and knows maybe not exactly where she's at, but a general direction altogether. And you hear the shots coming out from Kay, just trying to pressure on over towards these builds. But you see where they're at right now, Taco, the little forest, the spiral. Just like the Dreamy Domain, there's a lot of hiding possibility over at that split POI side of the map. Looks over, but sees her crouching. Oh no, the Flowberry Fizz crash pad gives her enough elevation to see her trying to sneak. Now it's a 2v1. Madi's pressuring onto one side, Kay's pressuring on the other. They get the piece control, and they get the shots to land. They clean up a whole team and drop them out of the lobby.
It was just way too steep of a health disadvantage there for Ada. A great effort to try and stay hidden there. Unfortunately, that Fizz crash pad just gives you so much of that eagle-eye view that there was practically nothing she could do to actually escape the clutches there of Kay and Madi. But that is a big swing for Kay and Madi, and now they have to work their way back towards that southern edge of the zone, Jacob. They might have spent a little bit longer than what they would have preferred chasing down that last elimination, but they've got a good material count. They've got pretty solid loadouts, especially with those 3 medkits on Kay. They could even opt for some late rotations here and play that early storm kick damage to their favor.
Yeah, especially with the zone pulling south early. Most of the teams are going to be on the north side overall, but Bella's going to go down and Nut's going to follow as well. That's going to be a huge elimination from Leslie and Abby. Remember, Leslie was cleaned up not once, but 2 different times. Abby doing a good job, not only staying alive, but continuously again and again and again, getting her teammate back into the game, saying, no woman left behind. You're coming with me across the finish line if I got to put you on my back.
This is terrifying, though, and Abby immediately, she didn't actually manage to make it out of render view. Even with their attempt off the Fizz launch pad, it still just wasn't enough. Sadly, she loses Leslie on the rotate. They were trying to make it deep into zone, but the moment that you're scouted off in the skies, everyone knows it's open season, and so the lobby has claimed Abby's duo, Leslie, one more time. But Regs and Moxie. Regs having a little bit of a tough time here, but they do have a nice position to try and cut off some teams that are rotating a little bit later behind them.
Just a reminder, if you guys saw the beginning of this game, or maybe you didn't, Smiley and Sophia were in first place, 165 points. Unfortunately, they went down off spawn. So as we look at Moxie and Regs, they started this game in third place, 159 points, 6 points shy of first place. Again, I talk about how close and stacked this leaderboard actually is, and it's any small moment that could really change the tides. As Malinke just dropped down to a solo, the med mist is there in the inventory, but we're down to a 2-tick. That puts a big timer onto Malinke's back here, because even with the zone pulling north, it's a max pull for Malinke.
She does still have 3 of those crash pads, but what she doesn't really have, Jacob, is the time to actually try and play for the reboot. Unfortunately, we might just be looking at Malinke trying to stick this one out as a solo player on life. She could still make the attempt, but with only 15... Oh, a fresh med mist might be the difference if it's actually as fresh as what Malinke needs it to be. And sure enough, that is going to buy her just a little bit more time, but again, she can't actually make a play for the reboot ban.
Yeah, she has to continue to rotate in. Right now, it's a 2-tick. She can survive that with 150 med miss, but it's going to turn into a 5-tick, which means she is 100% on a timer that's already started. So timing is of the essence to try to make her way in. We'll see if she makes it there later, especially with a full med miss. But as we tune in, Maddie and Sophie Ann, just like Leslie and Abby, Maddie was able to get Sophie Ann back into the game, but the timing needed put them below the damage threshold. Quick shots are going to land, and important shots as well. As soon as they go below that damage threshold, Sophie Ann will get eliminated to Storm Surge.
But you can tell there's still a lot of desperation breaking through there from Maddie and Sophie Ann. Sophie Ann will be claimed by the lobby as they continue to try and work their way through teams that are already boxed up in positions because they didn't have to play for the reboot, or just looking to take advantage of some of these stragglers. Yaz and Daya going to be one of our leading teams, and they're looking to try and build up their lead even further as Maddie just trapped.
Wait a minute.
She might get a chance here to play for the revive, but no. She just went to claim a little bit of materials, siphoned off of her teammate, bot lane, Noah Lick, just looking to capitalize, and they get to claim that last elimination there onto Maddie. Gonna put them in a much better spot for this next rotate.
I thought it was looking good. I thought it was looking good for Maddie. Just unfortunately, as she went to build a box over Sophie Ann, she ran out of builds, and that's where the shots were able to come in and clean up the elimination. But honestly, starting the game in 4th place, yes, you don't want this much of a hiccup in your game plan, but as long as they stay calm, cool, collected, close out the day with a good 5 and 6 games, they're still contenders for the Milk Cup Championship. But as we continue to move forward, Noah bot lane, they take that early elimination, the loot, and they quickly make their way forward. But notice one thing, they're not touching that low ground. They're keeping themselves elevated because they know how much chaos can ensue down below.
You definitely want to keep as much of a split if you can avoid getting caught in the congestion that is the low ground. Rin and Lena, on the other hand, just looking to try and cut through. Fastest way forward, make it into zone. That is a huddle up in a position, but it has drawn the attention of some of these other competitors, and Rin under heavy fire now. Only has the Flowberry Fizz to actually try and recuperate some of her shield. Rin and Lena, even though they've got strong builds here, Jacob, they're going to need a refresh and hope that teams have some heals to offer.
Yeah, just looking at Abby trying to get aggressive. Remember, Abby's a solo. We saw Leslie go down in the feed when she went to try to jump back and protect her. So she might be below the damage threshold, which is why she's trying to get into the box. But either way, top 26. One more team needs to go down before placement points start to make a play into this game. And there we go. So every team you eliminate out of the lobby, Taco, is not just elimination points, but it's placement points as well.
Hey, this is looking like a strong rotation up until the fact that they've run right past Regs and Moxie, and they're not the only ones. Vader just completely ripping through some of these players that were flying by. Lena might have a chance to actually revive Rin, but so much damage has already been done, Jacob. They were already running so low on their utility for heals, and now they're going to have to burn through so many just to put Rin into a healthier position for this next rotate.
Yeah, luckily for them, though, the person who initially got the down was nowhere in sight. That was on the rotation. So for Lena and Rin, they're going to be back up into the game. We already saw the med kit, the minis being passed around, so shield and HP is not going to be too much of a worry as they instantly start to rotate toward the next zone as they go toe-to-toe with that team that initially got that amount of damage. It's Canary, Fran, Their resurgence after that game one has to be noted. 7th place to start this game, 121 points. They're starting to find their groove here, and better late than never.
Hey, for Canary and Frantic, all they need is just one lights out performance, and that could be enough for them to really cut the gap between where they currently stand in the leaderboard and first place, especially since Smiley and Sophia were taking out so early on. But Canary and Frantic never want to count your chicks before they hatch. They're going to look to try and play this one just calm, cool, collected. It's Frantic moving forward, trying to get that front side elevated position. And so far, so good, but you always got to keep an eye out for who might be coming right after you. It's Vader and Nina, the continuation of that slugfest.
Yeah, they're in 5th place to start this game, 143. They've overtaken the high ground, perfectly played to try to steal that one away. Frantic and Canary, I think, have no idea as that one happened. As neutral, still trying to go through as a solo. Good amount of fizz here for a solo, and decent amount of builds as well. Just needs to continue to try to find a way to go under the radar. But as she waterfalls down, quickly became a little bit of a focus from Lena. But that's the backside of the zone for the most part. Lena's going to have to go ahead and rotate toward that direction. But not only neutral has garnered focus, so many other teams are beginning to tag up Lena. They don't want to let her into the zone, and they're not going to let that be a possibility as Sonu cleans that one up.
It's got to be so tempting, though, if you're in neutral position. You want to go for the body loop, but you know you don't have a survivor's chance if you push yourself too far out of position here. And she'll be forced to kind of commit to these low ground layers. She's just trying to play the silent, slinky game here and hope that she can find an elimination just right next to her, just on the other end of her box even. CC just gonna break through and immediately get claimed by neutral, but that is a huge lifeline now for neutral. She's got more material to work with, but the builds, they run out so quickly when you're a solo.
Yeah, especially when you're trying to full box and tarp up with full duos right behind you on this rotation. Vader and Nina, nobody's had a chance to look up, including Canary going down, so Fran's gonna be left by herself. Not sure exactly where she's at or if she got taken down altogether. Tokyo is going to be the one to get credit for that. But Nina and Vader, they not only have the high ground, they have the slap very exotic fizz. So they're going to be able to waterfall down. They have their heal off in the back pocket. They have the recipe for success.
And all they need now is to try and close this one out. Even with the materials running low, everyone just kind of clamoring over each other at Gordy's gate. Frantic will be shot down by Nina. They might be sisters outside a game, but there is no such thing as friendship on the battlefield here, Jacob. Nina and Vader, they want to bring this one home for themselves, be the first duo to strike with multiple victory royales on the day. K-Moore's K also stuck, just trying to claw their way through the low ground, but they've got nowhere left to run except into other teams.
Yeah, and look at where the zone is actually moving over towards that mountain range. That's giving them another advantage to use. All they have to do is look down. Yaz, last one. Regs at the backside of the zone. Bunch of solos running around. She's trying to win this one with the heal off, but in a 1v2 situation, the zone is still moving. I'm not sure there's going to be enough because she has to leave this box eventually. The zone is cutting back. That's a little bit of a blessing, giving Regs some time to work with, but she's getting sprayed from up above. 50 left on the med miss, 30 HP, but she's given herself a little bit of a spot here to call home.
This is still such a tough position to actually find yourself in. If Regs is able to turn this one, she would be absolutely insane for it, Jacob. She's still looking to try and tarp her way through on that front side low, but Nina, Vader, they're not looking to give up this victory royale. They've got it right in their sights. All they need is to find one sink shot onto Regs, who's still scrambling around in the low ground. They just can't seem to finalize on this elimination, but they know they've got so much in their favor. All it takes is one good shot and Regs is going to finally fall. Second placement points still coming into effect here, but Nina and Vader, that's going to be 2 victory royales on the day.
They started this game 22 points down away from first place. We know the big victory royale is about 65 points plus those eliminations. I'm not going to sing it too soon, but we might have a new first place team. But Moxie and Regs, yet again, another team in the hunt, making it to the top 2. This continues to stay interesting.
And they are still just keeping it too close for comfort. No one can really feel all that confident about it being a runaway circumstance by any means. You're going to have to stay consistent with your performances from this point forward, because it's game 5 that's going to be up next here, Jacob. The penultimate game before we close out the day. And there is just so much riding on the line here for these ladies.
Yeah, and for Nina and Vader, you know, you came off a game 4 win. You said multiple wins throughout the day. The first team to do it. They have found their groove. And what I noticed when they were fighting that 2v1 versus Regs, they gave her absolutely no chances. They didn't drop down and try to fight. So congratulations once more to them for winning game number 4. But we'll continue the rest of the Milk Cup Championship right after this break.
The best time of the year, Jacob, because it has all come down to this. The Milk Cup Land Championship, game number 5. And we're getting an immediate eye view of Nina and Vader catching a little R-Duke slipping by OXR headquarters. Surprise contested, it would seem. But I don't think that that's going to work out in anybody else's favor except for Vader and Nina's.
Yeah, it's going to help them just a little bit, build up that early game surge, build up that pressure on the rest of the lobby. They're the only team so far to win multiple games. Even with that said, they find themselves in 3rd place, 211 points. They're only 13 points down to start this game because now they've already closed that gap. Moxie and Regs over towards Viney Shafts, forcing a team out themselves even after getting 1 elimination. That's another team that's in 1st place, top of our leaderboard, 224 points and counting as well. So these next 2 games are going to be so telling about which team wants it more.
One thing has been very clear so far today, though, Jacob, and that's the fact that Regs and Moxie very clearly reminding everyone that they are a LAN caliber team. They excel in this sort of environment, and the way that they have manifested this 1st place position heading into our 5th lobby, it's all about just making smart rotations, keeping tabs, aware of some of the other players are at, and not just getting caught in the fold of congestion.
Interesting decisions around the lobby. Moxie Regs with that 1 elimination already pushing these teams out. They can go back to farming and looting up, getting their respective loadout that they need. Over towards Viney Shafts, there is a good amount of metal that some of these other teams just don't get access to. Just continuing looking down the leaderboard, we talked about Moxie Regs being in 1st place, Yasmin and Daya, they're 216, Nina Vader going to be in 3rd with 211, and Smiley and Sophia. To start that last game, they were in 1st place, but unfortunately going down early costed them that number 1 spot.
Nobody is safe, though. Nobody feels safe either. Daya and Lavish Lily. They've got another Lily and Kels staring them down from 1st order base. But Quintupla Lily has decided there can only be 1. And they seem very content to kind of just hold this leverage. That peak is very difficult to actually try and work your way through or past. But Leafa, a little bit caught off guard here by Mel. And it seems like they're interested in taking up this fight, but they know they're still going to need a little bit more builds to actually work with.
Yeah, confidence is great that they have it. Just have to give yourself the tools in your tool belt to be able to fight back a situation like this. While Leah's just kind of walking around farming, Leafa is the one that's kind of hiding her actual location, crouching down, lurking around, trying to maybe even catch somebody off guard, fake left, go right type situation. But with that team, not only on the high ground above, but that natural building that spawns there, most people loot up, they're even above that. So for Leah and Leafa, it's not going to be an easy escape, but they're dropping down to take the fight to them. A wall is going to separate them too, but quick thinking, they're going to get back into the same box, reunite, and continue to try to move back. Low builds yet again. Such a tough situation to try to fight back from, especially when pressure keeps pouring in from both and multiple angles all at the same time.
Leafa is definitely feeling the receiving end of that pressure right now. Mel knows that she's got the advantage. She's been being successful so far with their tags, but Leah losing all of her shield. That shield crack, though, is going to be that immediate sprint forward here, and Leafa will be the first one to get knocked and eliminated. Now it's all down to Leah to try and stay alive, to try and make a play for that reboot ban opportunity, but she's not going to get the chance. Mel and Scare just immediately collapsing, and it's tough. It is always so difficult when you find yourself in these fringe map positions, getting completely collapsed on, but I do have to respect the effort to try and power through it.
Yeah, the idea to kind of go ahead and peek and take that right hand was actually really good. Just unfortunately, Scare and Melanie kind of saw that one coming. They pre-placed the build, they edited it, were able to clean up that elimination. One game left for some, but for Scare and Melanie, they're in the 5th game with early game eliminations, which means they get that early storm surge. And depending on where the zone goes, they can use that as an advantage to prioritize rotating in, get as deep towards the center, maybe grab one of these mountains towards OXR HQ, like we saw Nina and Vader do multiple games so far.
But at the very least, Scare and Mel having that early surge damage, that's going to be a huge benefit for their game plan. Whether or not they find themselves getting cut off, though, by some teams that are already a little bit more in that central map position, we'll have to wait and see. But CC and Velcita, I think they've been kind of one of our surprise ringers in terms of just how scrappy they've actually chosen to be throughout today's matches. They have made it very obvious that they have zero fear when it comes to taking up a fight. For better or worse, they like to go all in.
Yeah, they're kind of inside of the top 20, but we talk about how stacked it is. One good game here can probably put them inside of the top 15. One good game to close the day out could put them inside the top 10. Plenty of time and opportunity for CC and Velcita. And there's somebody that they do have experience. They've been in situations before. They do play tournaments. And so I want to kind of look at them to try to take as much control over their destiny as possible. They're in the kind of the underground of the mountain as of now. They're just trying to farm up as much material as possible, the brick, the metal, before they rotate on out. But if they could prioritize maybe rotating right after they get these materials, they can beat a lot of teams to the punch.
Still need to be wary, though, of what might be making the approach. Flank positions are just so difficult to ignore, as all of these ladies have done their absolute best effort to try and just catch up whatever points, whether it's through eliminations directly or just looking to find a little bit better footing for getting some more established placement point positioning. Scare and Mel, they've got a little bit more time to work with in comparison to some of these other teams across the lobby, because one more time, having those early pairing of eliminations is just going to buy them a little bit more of an extension.
It's all the way out. Just trying to get a feel right now. We see Outlaws, Oasis not inside of the zone. It's pulling towards the east overall. So we might have another one of those zones that pulls all the way across the map from Outlaws, from Rangers, from Canyons Crossing even. So for scaring them, it's good that they got that early eliminations. It may not be the most storm surge underneath their belt, but it's giving them at least a little bit to work with and start to build that confidence. Mar, Nisui just kind of rotating in and around the first order base. Like I always talk about, there's plenty of brick, plenty of metal. There's some of the most precious of materials that they're able to get. And now that they have heals, there's launch pads here that they can use. As long as they kind of rotate towards the eastern side, the slower side, I think they'll be okay.
That's the thing, though, is that there was also plenty of other teams in that vicinity. So first order base, you know, maybe a little bit of a false sense of security taking place there, but Regs, Moxie, they are looking to try and pick up the pace here. They want to create as much of a separation as possible, and Mighty Shafts is kind of a very awkward spot because Frantic Canary, they're going to be the ones that Regs and Moxie are currently trying to cut off, but Frantic Canary, we saw them not at Canyon Crossing earlier on. This might have been the intent, was to try and take out one of the heavy hitters from this lobby to prevent them from actually building on their lead.
This is kind of absolutely crazy. The resemblance of what I'm seeing of something else here. If you want to be the best, you have to beat the best. And with themselves only having 2 games left, with how well Moxie and Regs have been playing, they cannot just let them slide for free. They have to go for the eliminations, and Moxie just dropped down 20 HP, forced to heal. The pressure comes in from all angles. Fran just leading the charge. Canary there on the other side, gets tagged up yet again. Regs is going to go down. The opportunity, the window has opened up for Fran and Canary to take the game back. All they have to do is figure out a way to get this final elimination onto Moxie. The med mist is going down. Only 1 mini left. The max HP Taco is 125.
Yeah, but Moxie's still going to make them work for it. And look at those arrows approaching in the distance from Outlaw Oasis. Trouble on the horizon here. Moxie, she's not going to go down without a fight. Frantic losing her shield means that she's going to have to take a second to pause here. And now the third party has come through. Teams recognizing, hey, this elimination feed is being lit up with our leaderboard first place contender. But Canary and Frantic, they are going to force Smiley and Sophia to reconsider. They still have the overhead leverage. But at the same time, Jacob, they don't want to get too up close and personal without finding some big connection shots first. They want to try and whittle away at Fran and Canary's HP, hoping that they're a little bit still tattered after that last box fight with Moxie and Regs.
Yeah, there's only really 10 points that separate Fran, Canary, Smiley, and Sophie. So this is going to be very, very interesting to see how they both play it out. But with Moxie and Regs down, I think that was the intention of Smiley and her duo, to take down first place. It might be the only shot we have to winning this entire thing, but luckily for them, Fran and Canary made it easy, so there's no reason to overstay their welcome this deep into the zone, especially it is kind of centering up as we jump on board Cece and Velcita yet again. It does look like they have an advantage here in this fight against Scars, and just looking at the mini-map, Scars is almost by herself. Teammate just trying to run away. Maybe we can go back for the reboot if worse comes to worse.
Poor Scars, though. She was on life alert to begin with, and now Velcita is going to be the final dagger. CC and Velcita finding that elimination onto Scars. It's going to put Mel into a very tough position, but we'll see whether or not she's able to try and recover something here as Yves, Bao, shifting the direction back over towards Dreamy Domain. And you can expect that Yves and Bao, they still want their piece of the pie all the same as everyone else, Jacob. It is all about that final rat race towards the top 5 of the leaderboard. And Yves and Bao, they know that they're going to need a big performance to truly have that takeover finish. And finding early eliminations, that could be the separation course, but still got to be careful with where you peek at. If you overstay it, there's still opportunity for it to get turned against you.
Yeah, just those third parties, but I did see in the feed Smiley getting an elimination onto one, Sophia box to box with the other, and they just steamroll through Taco yet again. Another player going down. And that's another point. They're just trying to close that gap little by little. They started this game on 165, so I believe they're about 61, 62 points shy away from first place.
But this is where mental fortitude can really start to come into the focus, because Smiley and Sophia, they're taken out so early on in Lobby 4, and it's devastating because you go from being in that first place position to knowing that we were eliminated in, 45th, 46th, so they got nothing for a whole game. They have to sit out, and then our next Pixies at the leaderboard, and we're watching them 60 points underneath where first place is at, but they kind of had the same break as everyone else in the lobby with Moxie and Regs being taken out so early by Frantic and Canary. I'm also thinking about the likes of Vader and Nina and what their plan of action is to really capitalize on those leading teams being taken out so soon.
First place most certainly should change hands after this game, going into the final one of the day, as you turn into Zayd, Nicole as well, just at the edge of zone. And we were kind of talking to Nicole during the halftime. She's like, nobody's peeking. Nobody's taking too many risks. Damage that I was easily able to find online. Teams aren't letting me get that same opportunities. And I think that's why in certain moments, especially isolated opportunities, we're seeing fights kind of break out outside of the map, outside of the zone, to where they feel like there's no potential for third parties.
Gotta watch your back, though. It's Bao and Yves still looking to get involved. They found a handful of tags across the way, but they've also taken a decent bit of damage themselves. So they're going to have to take a second, pop a little small shield potion. Haley and Rising just trying to trek forward. They don't want to stick around for much longer. They're going to try to utilize some of that forward pathing, see if maybe they can look back, spray, control the direction that Yves and Pao actually head next. But now another tag from the distance, and that's all it takes. Yves fully aware of the fact that there's teams that might be approaching from the east, from the west. It's best to not get stuck in the middle.
Yeah, see them rotating just away from Dreamy Domain, and rightfully so. It is kind of pulling towards the center overall of this game. Games 1 through 3 kind of pulling all the way towards the northeast. Last game kind of pulling on over into open water for the most part. And then this one right here can kind of give everyone that equal ground. You almost don't want it to pull towards the north, towards OXRHQ, because that's when we have those mountain ranges in zone. That's where it's almost like a real true roller coaster of emotions. But as we tune into Nina and Vader, I noticed one thing and one thing, Odie. There is an exotic double pump in the inventory. That is one pump potential. And with how dangerous this team has been so far today with 2 victory royales, it just got worse.
And just like that, they're ready to pounce. Whether it's just a freebie rotate or hoping to get a little bit more involved with some further action. They've got 3 eliminations already, Jacob, so they are clearly focused on just trying to build up as many points as they can possibly muster up. They're fully aware of the fact that every little bit counts at this stage.
Yeah, everybody at the top of the leaderboard making plays. Even Daya and Yasmin getting a full wipe out of a whole team, moving them one step closer to that top spot on the leaderboard. They started this game only 8 points down. And with Moxie and Regs out, I believe that might be even 6 or less.
Yeah, and it's been a rough go for Mini Michaela and Kay, but at the same time, they're not in last. They've still been able to find some points along the way, and I think that is a huge mental benefit for them heading into that last lobby, just trying to see if they can stay above it. But you have to remember, even if you do finish last, you are still walking away with a portion of the $210,000 prize pool that's up for grabs here today, Jacob.
Get experience, learning lesson. And I think playing on land, playing in person, playing in front of a crowd like this is something that you can't prepare for from the comfort of your home. So even if you don't necessarily get the placing that you're looking for, you got to take this in stride, get valuable experience that you can take with you for the rest of your days. As Zay and Nicole just kind of look to rotate slowly in toward the zone. They're not using the crash pads and fizz. They don't want to put too much of a target on their back flying through the sky. Just right there next to them, Spinor and Cat attacks as well, just trying to creep their way in. They're not fully inside of the zone just yet, but they're so close they don't got too much of a worries outside of Storm Surge itself.
I don't know if they realize that Mar is seemingly a solo inside of her box, but they don't really care to stick around and try and find out. They're going to actually choose to just keep it moving forward, but very low on mobility, rather low on builds. This is a very rough position for Spinor and Cat Attacks to actually find themselves in. And now looking back, Spinor sadly has to witness as her duo gets cleaned up by some healthier teams in the lobby. Neeswoody still holding it down inside of her box position, but Hazing Nicole and a handful of other players still surrounding. It's going to be so difficult. And Mar, she does end up getting knocked. Her teammate a little bit too split from her current position to actually back her up.
Yeah, you can kind of see just missing some shield, a little bit of HP, half of the material count for the most part as well, or I should say a third. So you're kind of seeing why she realized, I can't be a hero. If I go and try to save you, both of us will be sent back to the lobby. So while that was a smart play, that also puts pressure on her to perform. Top 36 teams left in the game. 11 need to go down just for the start of placement points to come in. And with every team that goes down from there, cascading placement points up until 65 for the win will start to come into play. And you're kind of seeing the priority of the rotation on the lobby. It does go towards the north. The one spot I feel like the lobby didn't want. The OXR HQ Mountains are now in play.
It might even find themselves running straight into the clutches. Nina and Vader, if they're not careful, sure everyone's kind of keeping an open eye out for that one, but handful of solos kind of separating where CC and Velcita and where they want to head next, but now they're getting lobbied. That shield crack, just such a huge sound cue for everyone else to try and target you out. And this is so rough now for CC and Velcita, because where they were originally trying to bypass all of this congestion, now they find themselves smack dab in the center of it.
Yeah, just a little bit separated there. I got a little worried for what was going down. A lot of teams starting to focus, but it all kind of slowed down, giving CC a second shot at life here. Leslie gets lost outside of the zone. Kitsunat trying to get some damage, but somebody breaks into the box. Panda is there trying to win this one. Good shot. That's going to be the first, but can she follow up with a good amount of damage? Because we know Kitsunat's going to go down. Cannot be the hero to save the day, but Panda is continuing to fight for her own life. She got splashes, good amount of builds. She just needs the dust to settle. But everybody, multiple teams, all looking in this direction, and Panda's gonna go down.
It's like sharks in the water. The moment that the bait has been set, everyone just seemingly collapses at the same exact moment. But Bao and Yves, they're gonna claim all of those leftover goodies, and it's gonna buy them a little bit more time to actually try and deliberate for how they want to make their next rotation, because we've got teams already trying to holster up towards that high ground. Crocs and Sweet, they don't realize just yet that is until Natty sends some loving shots their way, but they don't have any shield, Jacob. This is an outright key instance for Maddie and Sofiane, and they want to claim these elimination points.
Yeah, just try to fight while you can, especially with the zone pushing everybody in. A lot of these other teams that would be a potential third-party threat, likely going to have to rotate in, but it does look like they're going to be able to get out safely. So Maddie and Sophie Ann have to continue moving forward. But honestly, I like what this team is doing almost every step of their journey. They're just trying to make sure that if they lose or go down, at least they tried. And that's what's keeping them at the top of the leaderboard, because more times than not, they're actually winning these fights. They're winning these situations. And even when they're not, they're clutching up as solos.
I'd say they were pretty successful on that white line straight through towards the next edge of zone as well. It's incredible that they didn't eat more tags along the way, but that just goes to show how much of the effort and fixation right now for everybody is just trying to make it into zone. They're not looking to get caught up and caught outside that outskirt, because the moment that you are the straggler it's pinpointed, everybody just seems to be sending shots and lobbying that solo or duo, whatever it might be. But Maddie and Sophie Ann, 5 eliminations, Jacob. It's been very active for these ladies.
Yeah, and they started this game in 8th place, right? And to see how stacked the lobby is and the leaderboard overall, they were about 8 points away from a top 5. And with 5 eliminations so far, already getting placement points, depending on if those teams are still alive in front of them on that leaderboard, they can easily enter into the top 5 and be a contender to win if they just continue to have a good game here. But you've seen a third of the builds, 2 empty item slots, only 2 minis. This is not good.
And Vader, relatively center zone right now, compared to where some of these other ladies are located, but with the zone pulling out and away, that's going to be the sign for Nina and Vader to get a move on. But Lena, Rin, so many teams kind of sliding by. Everyone sort of like, it's almost like a pick your poison moment, because you never want to be the team that rotates too early and get lobbied that way, but you also don't want to be the team that rotates last.
Yeah, timing, it has to be almost perfect in lobbies just like this. It's Maddie and Sophie Ann doing just that, boxing up in metal as soon as they get there. Daya and Yaz forced down below, but continue to trade shots against Liz and Dolo, and it looks like they're winning the exchange for now. Dolo's going to go down, but that's Lavish Lily who steals away the potential elimination. But for Yaz and Daya, there's still loot. There's still much more to grab as they get that elimination there onto Liz, splitting it all, but most of the loot going to them.
And they might get more than just the one here. Daya and Yaz still trying to force their way into the conversation of being our top place team on the leaderboard, heading into that 6th and final lobby of the day here at the 2025 Milk Cup Land Championship. And this is where it's so easy, Jacob, I think, for the nerves to start trying to break through yet again, because you think, all right, we got the first lobby out of the way, we got the second lobby out of the way, I'm starting to find a little bit more of my groove, but then you see how close the points actually get, and it's so hard not to overthink it. I really have to commend so many of these ladies for being able to keep their wits about them.
Yeah, depending on if anybody below them got enough points, including Nina and Vader, this might be our new first place team as of now, not even the game being over. As of now, that point differential already outside of the window due to placement, due to the eliminations, and you're seeing they're staying all the way down below. They're just going over towards their side, waiting for it to open up so that way they can get priority position in front of all these other teams that might be a little late to rotate. HP, not a worry for Yaz. You see them 3 med kits in the inventory. The only thing that has my eyes glued is the material count.
And they're just trying to commit towards this front side low take. They know that they're going to have some teams sort of trailing behind them, but whether or not they're going to be able to find the eliminations, the knocks, that is what's going to be the real swing of the low ground, give them a little bit more material to work with. But Canary and Frantic, they have been absolutely devastating this lobby. 8 eliminations, Jacob, might be one of the leading elimination counts on the day, and they see a team go down right in front of them. But Daya, Yaz, they're trying to do everything in their power to keep this one rolling. Daya knows she needs to heal up. She can't actually play for the revive just yet, especially not with the zone closing in on her. She can tank a little bit of Storm here, but she's not going to want to stick around for too long.
No, not at all. Michaela's there on the other side. Daya actually had to go for the med kit. Had no other choice, but goes down. 2nd place out of the game and about 14th place. So now we have 1st place out, 2nd place down, and now it's open opportunities. Michaela gets another elimination on Decay. Siphon and so many materials with med down below. This could be our chance to float into the top 10.
And she is so content content to just keep playing her heals because she knows that with the way that this lobby is rolling through each other, she might be able to acquire even more placement points, just letting the lobby take care of itself. But Canary, frantic, backside of zone. They know they need to work their way around, but they recognize there's another team directly next to them, boxed up, and they are so low on their material count, they're not going to have any other choice but to fight. But it seems like the fight is more than welcome. They embrace it with open arms here, trying to shoot out height, still clearly trying to take the aggressive path.
Yeah, they went straight at height right now, but Fran drops down though a little bit too early, did not assess the situation, leaving Canary by herself. One build left, scrambles to the front, finds a little bit of the siphon mats, but not all, but continues to deep in. 3 builds left. She does have 120 on the med miss. Top 5 situation and the only solo in the game.
But if there's anyone you'd want to see left standing to play it out as a solo, Canary is definitely going to be one of the first names that comes to mind. Is still a little bit more on the tactical side of things, just going to play out the med miss fully and hope that there is a team that's in a much more scuffed position than her. But the zone pull back is going to be huge here for Canary. She actually has a slight positional advantage. She just doesn't have any builds to work with. Maybe she could steal this body away from B, who just found that elimination knock onto Lena. But B, Tokyo, they're chasing this one down outright. 8 elims for themselves too, and now headed straight for the high ground.
And they haven't even spotted that solo. Just kind of gifting points over just for staying alive. Top 3 situation, Nina and Vader, that's the only other duo down below. They're looking for a 3-peat in terms of game wins here, but they got to go against Tokyo and B. They already went against Canary. She's going to fall. 2v2 situation. B has more than enough to win a heal off if it does come down to it. Can she outlast at least 30 seconds? And the zone is now moving up the side of that mountain. A blessing for B and Tokyo. Out comes Vader. Out comes Nina. A big shot onto Tokyo and B. They have a half LP. Tokyo goes down. Nina's scrambling. It's going to be all up to Vader, but they pop the splashes. I think a miracle has just been gifted to Nina and Vader.
But you have to remember, B still had so many heals left to work with, and there's not as many here for Nina and Vader. I don't know if they realize that B has a total arsenal when it comes to heals entirely. Tokyo and B, they're looking to strike back. Vader is going to fall. The med miss is all the difference here for Nina, but B is still going. Storm sickness might actually be the root of issues here for B now, but Nina, she's entirely out of heals. B's still going. Nina panicking, trying to see if she can find this final player, but she can't do it. Tokyo and B are going to bring this one home.
Well deserved from Tokyo and B, all the way from 9th place on the leaderboard to a victory royale, just changing and shaking things up yet again. Taco, every single game except for one team has had a different winner. Almost every single game we've had a different first place team, and now with only one game left, I think it continues.
And you have to remember, Tokyo and B were not that far away from striking in that top section of the leaderboard. Love seeing that little pop off there by Tokyo at the end too. She fully trusted in her duo B to clutch this one up and heal off. You could tell they were scrambling there at the last second, Jacob. For a moment, it really looked like Nina and Vader were going to get the better end of things, but we see it break through. Tokyo and B, congratulations on your victory royale. We've got one lobby left to go here before we determine who our 2025 Milk Cup Land Championship winners are going to be right after this break.
Versus frantic, and Vader was confident. She didn't even really want to talk a lot of her trash. She's like, I'm just gonna let my gameplay do the talking. Well, guess what? After 5 games, that was a lot of talk to sit in first place.
Hey, Nina and Vader have definitely been letting their gameplay do all of the speaking for them, but it's finally here, Jacob. Our ladies are dropping in off that battle bus. Tokyo and B, we just saw them establish a Game 5 victory royale. But everyone has their eyes set on the prize. Every little placement point counts. Teams trying to really do whatever it takes to sort of leapfrog their way into that top 10 if they weren't there to begin with.
Yep, back to business as usual. Canyons Crossing has their players dropping there. Every drop spot now is going to have at least one team there. Last game was a couple tricks underneath some sleeves. This time around, it's just putting it all on the line. as B in Tokyo over at Supernova Academy. I like what B's doing here, but she has to be careful. She's trying to contest that flag because there's a lot of loot that drops out, a lot of heals, and then if you're close enough, or your enemies are, it will mark them as well. So I like the idea to try to just keep them off of it for as long as possible.
Really just waiting to see whether or not Crocs and Sweet decide that they want to give a little bit more pushback against allowing B and Tokyo to have control over that capture flag. But right now, B a little bit more fixated upon just trying to get some builds. If you want to fight, you're going to need a little bit of materials. You're going to need something to put up some protective measures here. But that does seem to be all it takes to kind of fizzle out that opening opportunity.
Yeah, and already you see the edge of the zone just over Supernova Academy. So that's an early hint that the zone could potentially continue to pull south in this game. We'll continue to follow that trend as the day does continue, as Nisui loses her teammate Mar, but even though she's only knocked, she gets a good angle on to Lily, dropping her down to maybe 10 HP or so, but Kels is there right behind, trying to put down the supportive fire. Nisui just gets tagged up yet again. Kels and Lily, 2 shots are greater than 1. They get the elimination and they get the wipe.
It was a last-ditch effort. Without any builds, it's going to be very difficult, and the sweeper, not exactly the ideal shotgun to take up that fight in a 1 versus 2 scenario, but action is definitely still building here at the first order base. I mean, Kels and Lily sticking around, but they might be able to find even more eliminations if those teams aren't careful. Sophia and Smiley, on the other hand, hanging out by Sakura Stadium. And these ladies have just... It almost feels like the world is their oyster. They don't really seem like they want to replicate the same game plan strategy back to back to back. They've kind of been doing something different, freestyling the whole way through.
Yeah, kind of pushing wherever it kind of feels right in any one moment. We saw them kind of potentially targeting out Moxie and Regs in that last game, but by the time they got there, they were already out. So they disengaged out. They win their off-spawn fight yet again, and they head towards the south this time around. And we know there's a couple contested fights as you go down that shoreline. Emperor and Psycho, they're the ones that landed over on that western side earlier on in the tournament, but they're switched up their drop spot just a little bit, but fresh out of builds. This is where it becomes a tough situation here, especially if they continue to put shots in that direction. There's a lot on the line of Emperor right now. How much materials do you have to keep yourselves in a good spot?
And that's why Psycho and Emperor were trying to be so quick about collapsing the team that's already along the shoreline here, but with Velcita and Cece now looking to close in, it seems like they have full interest in just taking the immediate box fight up against Psycho and Emperor, but there is still a chance for a pushback. Velcita doesn't want to get over-aggressive. They know what kind of punishment could possibly await, but there's also a chance for a strong connection shot, and Cece just looking to see if she can find a separate angle to give her teammate that advantage, and she gets it directly behind Emperor and Psycho. They didn't have their back tarp actually closed off, and Cece just fully punishing the pair of them alongside Velcita. That is a tough break, but a huge shout out to Emperor and Psycho for qualifying here in the first place. There's still going to be participants toward that prize pool as well, and it's just incredible to know that they managed to make their way back out to this land after last year's appearance.
Yeah, just unfortunately enough, we kind of saw moments before we switch on over to CC and Velcita how low on materials they were. It almost makes me think they didn't necessarily mean to leave the back tarp open. It's just something that happens when you run out of materials. Sophia and Smiley picking up another elimination. I did see that one in the feed. Hey, if you got to close the gap, the best way to do it is through eliminations, even in a placement-heavy format. Kind of got Nina and Vader, 275, 35-point lead over Yasmin and Daya, and then a 50-point lead over Moxie and Regs, and then a 55 over Tokyo and B, which means Nina and Vader either need to go down early or we need a win with a certain number of eliminations with some of these teams.
Like, it's going to come down to the wire. That's the one thing I'm certain of here today, Jacob, because it's been such a close-knit competition, as is a Moxie realizing it's not just bushes you need to check. No rock is safe either. As Moxie, Regs, they're going to be forced to come to a little bit of a halt here. K-Moors just trying to stay close by here, but Liz, Dolo off in the distance. Moxie, Regs just trying to get a gauge on which direction, which team they actually want to try and pursue.
Yeah, Moxie and Regs, I think they're looking for opportunities to jump on anyone's teams, but with third parties coming in, landing some shots. K-More's trying to hide in the bush, but the blind shots from Moxie are going to connect, giving a giveaway of the position. Regs is going to go in with the bait and switch, get the elimination, their second one of the game so far, and replenishing all that lost loot that they used to get here.
Still a little bit awkward, though, for Regs and Moxie in their current positioning, and they know they don't want to be sat out in the open for much longer. They'd rather try and rotate out some better positioning here as Kay and Mari managed to find good elimination onto Ada. She did her best to put up a defensive attempt, but unfortunately, she's just not going to be able to hold on against the pressure that was applied by Mari and Kay. But it's one thing to find elimination or even a pair of them, Jacob. It's another entirely to know what to do with it next.
Yeah, especially can already see, even with that elimination, still an empty item slot. And then they have the choice here. Do you camp that reboot card, knowing they might have to come back as Abby goes down? Spinor is going to be able to get the knock. Leslie's still there on the other side, trying to fight for piece control, but gets denied multiple times. Spinor is able to hold that wall, and which is saving the life. A little bit of showboating there for a moment. Might not be the perfect time, but she's still able to escape towards the top side of the box. Leslie takes a lot of damage from that third party, dropped to 60 HP.
Wait a second, Leslie, she's not going to get a chance to actually escape. No. That is so traumatic for Abby and Leslie. Just a shutdown in the making by Brett and Jules. And that's the problem here, Jacob. No one is giving up. I love to see every single one of our competitors taking it down to the final moment.
That's what you got to do, especially if you want to go ahead and win just thousands upon thousands of extra dollars with the placements that you continue to move up that leaderboard. For Jules and Brett, they started this game in 10th place, 145 points, and they are so close to earning some extra money here if they can close out this game well, as Sophie Ann does go down in the feed. Haley, Aim Rising just trying to drop down from above. They don't want to necessarily continue to take that fight, but there's another team that is going to be close by, and this is who they're trying to watch out for, but Haley just gets targeted out only for a quick second, trying to change layers and reunite with a duo. That's going to be key.
Velcita and CC can be a really difficult team to kind of get caught in an exchange with, especially when you're just sending out an open invitation for a third party to start trying to intervene, but Rising, Haley still doing a decent job at pushing them back. Sneaky little angle there by Rising, but doesn't net anything just yet. Instead, it's going to be Haley losing a little bit of her shield. CC and Velcita, they seem content now. It's almost like they're trying to draw Haley and Rising closer to them.
Maybe bet him in. Get into a fight that they know they want to play, but it's not coming to them. They're going to go ahead and try to come to you. The Fizz is there as well. They immediately try to jump up and take high ground. Both of them focusing on Rising, but only for a short second. But Rising handling her own, still landing damage onto Velcita. Haley finally reunites into the same box. And you see they're not taking any big risks. Right now, they're just taking shield off little by little with scraping shots here and there, and they're winning this fight.
Definitely a little bit concerning, though. It seems like Velcita and CC maybe feeling a little bit too brash with that decision to kind of charge forward with the crash pad. I mean, it was a pretty lined up shot there for Haley and Rising, but even still, the fact that they weren't knocked or eliminated in that process, they're still able to bring things back up close and personal, and they're looking to try and take matters into their own hands. They want to control their fate in this final lobby. And Rising, Haley, they have zero interest in budging anytime soon. They have put up such a steep defensive measure here, Jacob.
Yeah, and there's really only potential for one team that is close by to third party, but they're not even going to see the day. Haley's teammate does go down. You see her immediately trying to scramble around to try to find some safety, but only 9 builds left. That's going to force the lurk out, trying to hide her position. That's why she's aiming right now. When you aim and crouch just like this, a lot of your audio is hidden. But they're just going to heal up real quick before they go on the hunt for Haley.
It was also just the fact that Rising and Haley, they were getting so excited by the way that they were constantly just getting these little bits of whittling away at Velcita and CC's HP bars and shield. They just, it's so easy to lose track of where that duo is actually at, because Rising just so caught off guard by CC with the flank. Haley doing a great job, though, to completely disengage. She doesn't get a chance to shoot out that crash pad, though. So I am a little bit fearful at her just being completely chased and keyed down by Velcita and CC.
Nah, it's just did a good job of being able to kind of disengage towards the bottom. I think since no shots been fired in that direction, Velcita and CC said, you know what, never mind. We're going to continue to take our position in the game. Eventually, she's going to have to cross our paths. As we jump on board, Fran and Canary. 5 eliminations by Fran. 6 overall for the entire team. It just goes to show they realize where they're at on the leaderboard. They realize the only real way to come back instead of hoping and praying first place goes down and you get the win, it's just start picking up eliminations left and right.
Hey, they say there's nothing more dangerous than an animal that's been cornered. And for Frantic and Canary, you know, they're birds trying to break out of a cage right now. They don't want to be held back by anything. And if they continue to soar in this lobby, it could be very problematic for some of these other ladies that are also trying to maintain that top 3 positioning. Vader, Nina being one of them, just south of Dreamy Domain. They've got Scare in their sights, but they're waiting. Not sold on making a move just yet.
You know what I think right now? Because you see how far they are from their actual drop spot compared to every single game so far. They probably plan to have that quick rotation all the way towards the south, just in case the many teams we saw last game hunt down Moxie and Regs, try to do the same thing to them. So even though they might not necessarily have the same loot as they've had before, they're just trying to give themselves the best shot at winning it all, regardless if they win this game or not. A 35-point lead isn't much, but for how well they've been playing today, it's perfect.
But we are seeing a lot of our leading teams with relatively strong loadouts, Jacob. And that's one of the most exciting aspects, because we know they've all got ample opportunity to kind of take these affairs into their own hands, control their own destiny. It's Moxie, Regs, they've scouted out Bao and Yves just above them on the peak of the mountain span, but they're also trying to be cautious. They don't want to overexpose themselves because they're fully aware of the fact that there's got to be other teams looking to try and overtake height.
Not only height, but a couple teams down the bottom side of that mountain. As Fran and Canary end up in a whole nother fight against Ava, who's just stopped in her tracks, gone down, leaving her teammate by herself with just a sliver of HP. And I think they know that she's weak as Chloe goes down. Canary cleans that one up. Back-to-back eliminations for her. That's their 8th one of the game so far, Taco. We're not even halfway through this game.
Like, I know for a fact that everybody has taken note of what is lighting up in that elimination feed. And when you see Frantic and Canary back-to-back over and over again, it does start to play a little bit of mind games, because you almost begin to wonder, do I go for just purely placement for my leaderboard positioning, or do I try to find some extra eliminations? Because if it comes down to it, if Canary and Frantic are inside of that top 3, but they've got double-digit eliminations, that might be just enough to cut through the gap.
Yeah, and kind of speaking of that, with their 8 eliminations here, they started this game in 5th place on 217 points. Well, guess what? They just passed Tokyo and B in 4th place, who are on 220 points. They're still about 50 plus points away from that first place spot, especially with our top team still alive in the lobby. But Fran and Canary are truly giving themselves a shot.
They want it so bad. Frantic and Canary have also had just so much of the public pressure on their heads, because they are such prominent figures, not even just for the women's competitive scene, but in the overall Fortnite community. And it is very impressive to see how they've managed to kind of toggle with all of that taking place around them. They're still just staying true to their own identity as players. They know that they are more than capable of finding back-to-back elimination sequences. They just need to keep stringing them together.
Yeah, I feel like, hey, if we're going to win this game, if we're going to lose this game, it's going to be our own accord, no matter what anybody else has to say. And that's the type of mindset that you really have to admire, especially in a tournament with over $200,000 up for grabs. Daya, Yaz, they're going over toward this bunker, but this one's not going to open, even though somebody already has it. 5th zone, you can kind of tell when gliding in from the initial bust that if it has chains on it, just like you've seen here, it's not going to open. If you find the only vault without chains, that's how you know it's going to open.
Still a little bit fickle with where they want to be at. Daya and Yaz fully aware that there's at least one team kind of hovering behind them, and Crocs and Sweet are not the only duo that could pose a threat here, as Daya and Yaz just trying to get a little bit of consistent refarm along the way, but only 127 above that surge damage threshold, Jacob. And with the way that the zone is pulling one more time towards this southern section of the map here at Dreamy Domain, all that natural coverage can make it all the more difficult to actually try and find those steady, consistent tags.
Yeah, especially when teams don't want to necessarily peek on over. 199 above for Scare and Melanie as well. They do have CC and her teammates separated just a little bit. They could pick one and then try to push, try to take a 2v1 while they can. I think that's exactly what they're looking for. They heard or the audio visuals of CC's healing. They may not know exactly which box she is in, but they know she's separated as of now. CC continuing to try to play for those shots through the cover. Maybe land one onto Scare just like that. Weaken her just a little bit, whittle her down, and that's where maybe even on the other side, Velcita, you see her putting pressure from a whole another angle.
And right now, it's all about whether or not Mel and Scare can kind of keep a good grasp of the walls that surround them, what walls they've also taken for their own. Mel just trying to not stay exposed. Even the slightest crack could be all it takes for a shield crack, and at that point, you just know that Velcita and CC are going to try to key into the box.
Yeah, you get the shields crack in a moment like this, that's a green light to go, but with the zone pulling away over towards the south yet again, you see a third team rolling up. Not sure if they're lurking or just trying to go on by, but they hear the shields crack, they get the same signal. Velcita, 1 HP, Melanie with 45, they get the trade off, but neither one of them getting the result that they were looking for.
And it might just be disastrous because Moxie and Regs, they've been lurking, waiting to get involved in the action. Mel and Scare, they're in the worst position, just completely sandwiched. Even if they try to bail out, they might still be susceptible to Moxie and Regs lighting them up along the way. But no, Mel, Scare, it seems they caught a glimpse of where Moxie and Regs are actually at. So Moxie's just going to build overhead. She's trying to cone them off and prevent them from actually escaping off the crash pad. Rather still, Moxie, Regs, they might even choose to just recycle the crash pad that was just used by Velcita and CC.
Yeah, smart play right there. They were lurking as the just in case, watching the feed, listening to the noise. If anybody went down, they would have crashed onto that fight. But since they saw the team disengage, they saw another duo there, they just went to recycle. Ebeth down below by herself. Moxie and Reg's going to be the receiving end of some of that damage. They don't have the information of the solo being nearby, so they're immediately just trying to beeline it in towards the zone. They're over 800 damage above the threshold. They have the loadouts that they're looking for, barring some shields here and there, but this is going to put them in a good spot compared to most of the teams that are stacked on the north.
Moxie and Regs are content to kind of just stick it out inside of spiral shoots, and for Ebeth, it's going to be very complicated to actually work her way up the clip face. She's got to hope that Moxie and Regs get a little bit more distracted by Jade and some of the other contenders in the nearby area, but Regs, she's got all three of their eliminations currently. And you don't want to hit the autopilot section here, Jacob. It becomes very easy to start daydreaming about what it'd be like to replicate that championship moment that Regs and Moxie got to experience just last year. But they know they've got to see things through. They want to take home the trophy yet again.
Yeah, like both of these instances where they're lurking on towards a team, the zone pulls far away, and they immediately abandon the plan, realizing getting to zone is more important than elimination here and there. As B in Tokyo, they're hearing a lot of the noise go back and forth from the bottom of that structure all the way towards the top. But they too have a hard pull, and they're on the congested side overall, so prioritizing the fizz and the crash pad to get over all this chaos and start to make your way in is so important.
Hey, big risk, big rewards though for Tokyo and B. That fizz crash pad maneuver has put them straight towards the next front side of zone, and now they're just trying to claim as much space as they can muster up. Tokyo doing a great job of kind of just tarping things out. They've got a rather uncontested layer currently, and Tokyo even fully aware that there's going to be other teams kind of encroaching upon their position soon enough. But Canary, frantic, they've been duking it out all lobby long. 12 eliminations here, Jacob. They're ready to go out with a bang.
Yeah, 2,500 above the damage threshold. They can hide in a cone and not play for the rest of the game, and they won't take a single tick from here on out, trying to go ahead and control their own destiny. This is exactly how you do it. Fran taking pressure from underneath, Canary from up above. They're forced to drop back down in their box, which isn't too much trouble, but you see they expended a lot of brick to put themselves into this position and try to be as safe as possible.
But they've still got relatively healthy bill counts, and I think that is what's really going to help separate themselves from the rest of the lobby. Frantic even having to play a little bit more of that supportive measure as Canary continues to just peek back towards the back tarp, trying to maintain a good closure so that they don't find themselves getting caught off guard by any singular player or team But Frantic, Canary, they know they're going to have to get a move on soon enough.
Taco, Zone 6, Max Pull. Zone 7, Max Pull. Zone 8, Max Pull yet again. The Milk Cup Championship on the line, and everybody's going to have to fight tooth and nail to try to get it under their name. Yaz and Daya in contention, second place coming into this one, getting pressured. Even with their one elimination, it's not slowing down or stopping. And look, they're burning through their materials. Only 300 mats left for Yaz, 400 plus for Daya. They're going to need a refresh if they want to win this game.
And they've definitely been struggling since they've been on the receiving end of so much pressure, but now is the time to dig deep. Every last little bit of strength that these ladies have to offer. They've got to pull out all the tricks here to try and get the job done. As Daya, yes, they finally managed to break through, but Jacob, Daya down to her final 8 builds. We're talking about our 2024 Milk Cup Land Championship MVP, and just right now, in this instant, she is struggling for survival.
Vader and Nina still alive. Start this game, 275 points. They are the team to beat. And eventually, if they stay alive long enough, Taco, it's going to be mathematically impossible for any team to catch up. And I think that number might be inside of the top 10.
But I am looking at Nina and Vader without a single elimination to their names just yet, in comparison to a duo like Frantic and Canary, where they've had every elimination of this lobby so far, it feels like. But still, like you mentioned, placement points do make a massive difference here, as Vader, Nina, they're just looking to try and shut down anyone who dares rotate their way. But another Max Pull is going to send these ladies packing, as they're all trying to make sure that they stay ahead of the pack.
Yeah, this time around, we are going towards the north. Different terrains there, as Fran takes a monster shot, drop down to just 47 HP. Luckily for her, reunites in an instant along with Canary. 14 eliminations so far for these two. They finally have picked up the pace, but we ask ourselves the question, is it too little, too late? Only time will tell. With 14 teams still left alive, 26 players. There's 2 solos even running around.
How bad do you really want it? And for Frantic and Canary, all they have intentions for is just taking over that front side low position. They're going to stay one layer above, but they're looking back. They're trying to apply a little bit of steady pressure towards the teams that are looking to close in behind them. Straight up on the high ground, though, it's going to be Rogo and Neutral still looking to see what they can gather in terms of placement points for that leaderboard positioning. And here in the final hour, Vader, Nina still managing to remain relatively unseen, and it's all front side low. That seems to be the final effort.
I think that's 17 something for Canary and Fran yet again. Nina and Vader are not even in the line of sight for Fran and Canary. If they want to win this tournament, they have to take down Nina. They have to take down Vader, because right now it looks like it's smooth sailing, as Daya and Yaz have just gone down. Second place is out of this game. Rogo gets chopped down, Neutral as well. High ground is somebody else's as they continue to try to build back up. It's Fran, it's Canary. They're trying to fly high like an eagle.
And they've managed to find the eliminations they need to. That siphon materials could be the separating factor here, as now Frantic Canary, they're looking down, they're trying to spray these teams that they're scouting out, making their way through front side low. Vader, Nina being one of them. Moxie, Regs, they're trying to get that little bit of a shakeup in the leaderboard too. Brad gonna be taken out by Moxie, and Moxie's still just trying to make sure that she keeps her overhead tarp closed off. But with the way that Moxie and Regs are headed, they're about to run smack dab into Kitsunat, Panda, and not only that, but there's still Nina and Vader to consider down here.
Yeah, $210,000 up for grabs, up and down that leaderboard, and you're seeing exactly what they're fighting for. But for Nina and Vader, they're fighting for first place. They're fighting for most of that money, the medals, the trophy, the best in the world, as she takes down Liz as well. Nina is going off, and another one onto Regs. That's the defending champions going down. Nina cleans that one up. The med kit, the med miss, they have multiple win conditions now.
But it's going to be an absolute toss-up into the air, because we still got Frantic and Canary straight over ahead. They're trying to make sure that they're the ones who actually bring home this final lobby. The victory route plus their double-digit eliminations might be all it takes to overthrow. But Vader, Nina, they're giving it every last effort. They are diving deep into the bag here, as Neutral will finally be eliminated here. Vader and Nina, they have come alive.
This is their chance right here. 5 eliminations here towards the end game. Final 2 teams remain. A 2v2 situation here going down against Nina and Vader on one side. The high ground, that's a whole nother team up above. That's Canary, that's Frantic. A better story has never been told as Nina takes a big shot. Frantic as well. They trade back and forth, but Nina's gonna go down. Vader's gonna fall, but they are still your 2025 Milk Cup champions.
And that is the ultimate difference maker, the consistency, the placement point finish. But can we give a round of applause, please? Because that last-ditch effort from Canary and Frantic was absolutely ballistic to witness. But the pop-off from Nina and Vader, this is what they were waiting for, Jacob. They knew that this was their moment to try and seize their own destiny.
2 victory rounds, over 300 points. They didn't want to just take part in the Milk Cup Championship. They wanted to take over. Yes, the win would have been nice, but this win for the major event is so much better.
I just cannot believe what we have had the chance to witness. But obviously, Jacob, we're not the only ones that got a chance to witness the story that unfolded here today for Xset, Nina, and Vader. We've also got our analysts that had an opportunity to participate and witness and break it all down with us.
Yeah, that is just absolutely incredible here, just to show months and months, year-long efforts coming down to this, and we got our champion.
Sierra, and thank you guys so much for your patience. We were running the numbers, we were tallying it up, and we do have our official winners of the 2025 Milk Cup Championship. Can I have a bit of a drum roll, please? Your winners are Xset, Nina, and Vader! Congratulations, guys. Go and raise that trophy one more time for Xset, Nina, and Vader! Presenting 2 medals for our 2 winners is none other than Jen Grubb from Gonna Need Milk. And nothing is complete without some milk hydration. Ready to go. Cheers! Drink up, you deserve it. Congratulations, you two. I'm gonna go up to get a quick word with our winners of the Milk Cup. I mean, coming to you first, this has been such a long time coming, it feels like, right? I saw your face, you knew you had it, you just need to wait for the confirmation. Talk to me, what does it feel like to look at all of these people who now recognize you as one of the Milk Cup champions?
I mean, it's just surreal. Like, I don't even know how to describe the emotions I'm feeling right now. I'm just so happy. We played so well. Like, it's like, it's such a, like, I'm just so crazy. Like, it's crazy. It's hard to believe it's real.
I'm gonna move over to this side now. Excuse me, pardon me, excuse me. And not to get in your spotlight, Miss Winner. But, I mean, talk to me about, like, what was the feeling this morning when you woke up? You're like, were we gonna win? Were we gonna do well? What was, and compare that to now, when you're sitting here, again, seeing all these people, these cameras, all these people cheering for you. I heard your name many times, that you are the Milk Cup champion.
Honestly, this feels way too surreal. I mean, winning is literally the perfect thing. I've needed this all year, and I've proved so many people wrong. It feels like I knew this morning, like when I woke up, I already knew I was gonna win. Nobody believed in me, but I knew I was gonna win. The confidence was there, and here we are.
From the two of you, what do you think was the key that helped you guys win today? Because you guys put on such a spectacular performance all day today. What was the kind of the magic moment, the magic milk moment, if you will?
I think most importantly, good vibes, good mental. You know, we told ourselves this morning, like, okay, no matter what, we have to have good vibes, good mental. And then we did. Even though we had a little rough start, it was perfectly fine after, you know, second, first, second. It's pretty good.
And in your opinion, what do you think was kind of like the magic milk moment?
I think it's definitely teammates, like having a good teammate. Like Nina's just the best ever, and our vibes together, like our duo chem is just on point, and that's really the most important thing.
I mean, Vader was talking about just kind of like not knowing what this feeling was and how to describe it. Can you give me any words how to describe how it felt to hold that trophy up, to wear this medal presented by Gonna Need Milk? And again, like you said, you said people didn't believe in you. People didn't expect this to happen. How does it feel now to be standing on this pink stage, again, the Milk Cup champion?
I mean, again, it just feels very surreal. I've dreamt about this day since maybe like 10, when I started playing video games. I've watched esports, I've watched like all Valorant, League, all of that, and this is a huge dream come true. I'm just so happy right now.
And Vader, one last question for you. Coming into something like the Milk Cup Championship, a place for women, you know, made by women, for women, what does it mean to be here now, standing here as the winner of a place like this that is about the presence of women in esports?
I think that it really shows that you could be yourself, like be your true self, be who you are, unapologetic about it, and that there are spaces for everybody, and that no one should ever give up.
Guys, give it up one more time for your Milk Cup champions, Exet Nina and Vader! All right, I'm gonna let you guys get back to your seat, but of course, everyone here is a winner and walking away with something. We do have our leaderboard of where our second and third, and where everyone ended up. Speaking on just anecdotally, the energy in this room and the energy coming from the stage with these players are absolutely incredible. Can we give it up for everyone on this leaderboard right now? Second, Frantic and Canary. Third, Exet Moxie and Exet Regs. I mean, truly some incredible Fortnite play today. No matter what, we were watching in the back, kind of just in awe of what these young women are able to do. I know you guys were screaming, you were cheering. You were at the last game on the edge of your seat, seeing who's going to raise that trophy. And I know that is something that the girls appreciate. As you guys being here, I know we backstage on behalf of, you know, everyone here at the Milk Cup appreciate you guys being here, because you are what helps make the Milk Cup so special. You know, we can have these risers here, right? And that's a great experience. But what is better than seeing smiling faces cheering for them, you know, cringing when something goes wrong, right? All the highs and lows of esports that you perform with and you watch as a fan, it is nothing without you. So thank you guys so much for being here for that as well. Well, we're not done. I know that sounded like a goodbye, but relax, we're chilling. I thank you for the whistle back there. But we have an MVP award to give out. So I'm going to bring up Taco to give up that MVP award. Taco! I genuinely have no idea who this MVP award could go to. I think it could go to anyone. I think the plays we saw today, I'm sure Taco will speak about it, are absolutely, MVP is, you know, we only give it to one person. I feel like so many people are deserving of this beautiful MVP medal. And Taco, I'm gonna let you take it away.
Look, if there's one thing I know for sure, Liz, is that 2 is better than 1. And Exet, you'll be happy to know that Exet Nina is going to be our 2025 Milk Cup Land Championship MVP. You got another one to put around. The crown belongs to you now.
Give it up for Nina, Exet Nina, one more time. Everyone, your MVP. I mean, Nina, look at this. 2 medals around your neck. You said you already knew you were going to win. Did you think you were going to be MVP?
No, honestly, no. I honestly did not.
How does it feel now that you're MVP?
Fantastic. Even better.
You deserve it.
You deserve it. Everyone give for Nina one more time. Incredible performance from you.
Congratulations, but I'll take my departure. The spotlight is all you.
Goodbye. I mean, what do you think? You're someone who you said you've been playing games since you were 10 years old, correct? Talk to me about, like, what is the practice like? How do you train your mechanics? Because I am someone who loves good mechanics, and your mechanics are incredible, Nina. I'm not trying to I'm not like blowing smoke or anything. Like, you are absolutely incredible at the game you play. Talk to me. How did you get to this point?
I mean, honestly, I think I've been playing Fortnite about like 6-7 years actually, but I literally just play the game every day. You know, I love the game so much. I just go into creative, warm up, all that. I literally love the game. That's just how my mechanics got good, to be honest, and playing against good players as well.
Now that you're here as the MVP, where do you go from here? Like, do your mechanics get better? Like, as the MVP, what do you have to get better at if you're already the most valuable player? Is there anything, or you're like, nah, I'm chilling?
I mean, honestly, hopefully to make it in FNCS one day. That's one of my huge goals in life, I think, in my career. I just need to go up to that now. We don't stop.
Guys, what do you think about X at Nina and SCS, excuse me? Does that sound good? I think it sounds quite good, and I'll be watching when you are there. Thank you so much, Nina. Congratulations again. You can take your seat one more time. But we are not done, friends. We have one last award to give out, and it is the Sportsmanship Award. I can think of no one better than Peach to come up here and deliver the Sportsmanship Award. The one and only. The Milk Cup is not possible without Peach. Hello, beautiful.
Hello.
I'll let you take it from here.
Hi, everyone. I'm so excited to give this award because I truly believe in sportsmanship, and that's exactly what the Milk Cup Championship is all about. So this award is not only for the helping hand that this lovely lady has provided to her teammates, but also her vibes and her energy consistently across the board. So Mini Michaela, will you come down and receive the Sportsmanship Award? Mini Michaela, where are you? Oh my dancing queen, let's go! Give it up! She's attacking the winner. I don't know if that...
And is that what the Milk Cup is all about? That's sportsmanship? That right there is exactly why
yes,
they got that award.
That's love.
No, please collect your reward. Everyone give it up for Mini Michaela one more time. Go get your medal. Go get your medal.
Come on up here. My beautiful. Thank you. And that's it, right?
I'm going to get a few words from you. I mean, right away, you came down for your award and hugged someone else. And I don't know if that is the most like sportsman thing I can think of. Like, what do you think it is about the Milk Cup that makes that possible?
Honestly, just to start off, like, I'm not the best at Fortnite, but I wanted to come here and support all my friends. I mean, they're just all super talented Fortnite players, and just everyone in the room, it's just really inspiring to see. So if I'm not the best at the game, then at least I can hype everyone else up, you know?
You guys feeling hype? Well, congratulations on to take your seat again. We love it. And guys, that is our show. On behalf of Gonna Need Milk, Radiant, and everyone backstage, on stage, and everyone here, thank you so much for joining us for the Milk Cup Championship at TwitchCon. Get a glass of milk, have fun, be safe, make good decisions, and we'll see you in the server. Good night.